what's up, guys? Welcome to the Awesemo NBA Deeper Dive presented by Jock Market. I'm Alex Baker, joined today by Adam Scherer, aka Ship My Money DFS. Adam, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Glad to be doing another show with you. It feels like we hadn't done any in like a year, and then now we have, I think, two in the last week.
I know. Yeah, it's pretty fun going on these shows with you. And I think we're always doing the Wednesday one, but today I'm filling in for Laffy. So we got a double dip this week. Should be fun. Now, last night, pretty interesting slate, I'd say. Uh, Hopefully you rostered Andre Drummond because everyone else did, and he had a pretty good game. Made it so we only had to worry about 7 or 8 guys on our roster instead of 9. So, what did you make of yesterday's slate?
Yeah, I mean, yesterday was just kind of one of those spots where NBA is just totally different than other sports. Like, there's no other sport where you can tell me somebody's going to be 80% owned, and I'm going to be like, yeah, okay, I don't care. I'm still playing him in every lineup. But that's, kind of how it was with Drummond, and you just accept that 20% of the field is not going to have a good lineup that day. So it kind of felt like the first, like, real NBA slate we've had where you just have like a completely mispriced team because multiple guys are ruled out late. So it went okay for me. Didn't have any sweats, had a lot of lineups just ruined by like Trey Young or Julius Randle or just, one player here or there. But thought it was, a pretty fun slate overall.
Yeah, that was a wild one. I know on Live Before Lock, I think Greg was saying that right when that news broke that Tobias was out, he was like slamming the Blazers at the money line. Unfortunately, like the Sixers, even without Tobias and Joel Embiid, somehow pulled it off. Like, I think that just shows how crazy NBA DFS is, where two guys that are top guys on the team are out. They still are competitive, right?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy to see them kind of just at one point it kind of looked like they were going to run away with that game. So yeah, pretty surprising. Their bench has been pretty good all year, though. I know from rostering Joel Embiid a good amount that there's been several times already where the bench just runs away with it in like the end of the third, beginning of the fourth. So I guess not too surprising that they were still competent even without Embiid and Harris.
Yeah, definitely. They got some solid guys on the team. So now today, obviously, we don't have any Andre Drummonds to recommend. Like you guys heard it here first to play him, so we'll take a victory lap there. No one else was saying play Andre Drummond. But before we get going on these guys, give us a like and hit subscribe if you haven't already, so that you can get all of our DFS content. We got a lot of pieces for pretty much every slate, so make sure to hit the like button. Also, we have some free data today, so I just realized I'm reading off last night's stuff here, but one of the free pieces is the deep dive, which is a comprehensive breakdown of all the different games written by Ship My Money himself. It's free every day. If you want to get in a quick lineup and just want to brush up on what's going on in a day's slate, that's a great place to go over. All right, let's get into the games here. So Milwaukee at Detroit. Milwaukee, they're without Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday. So what you'd think is it would be the Giannis Antetokounmpo show. Now I know the last time that we were in the spot, he didn't exactly impress, if I remember correctly. So what are you making of the situation?
I mean, I think it still looks really, really good for Giannis. Since last year without Holiday and Middleton on the floor, he's averaged about 1.8 DraftKings points per minute. Overall this year, he's at 1.7. So it's not like you're even necessarily expecting a huge jump for him in terms of production, but there is more usage, more assist opportunities available for him. He should play 34, 35 minutes, assuming this game's competitive. Only a 4-point spread against Detroit since Milwaukee is missing so many guys. And then Detroit, sorry to say, but Detroit, one of the worst teams in the league. So it sets up as a pretty good matchup in that way as well. I think Giannis looks great. It's not even a concern, but like the only issue from a tournament standpoint is there's not a whole lot to pay up for on this slate. And I think Giannis clearly projects better than Luka Doncic, who's the other, 11K plus option. So I do think there's a chance, because we do have a lot of value on this slate, we're potentially getting more depending on how news breaks, and if whether or not we even have it before the Milwaukee game. But there's a chance, I think, that Giannis just ends up getting enough ownership where I look to go elsewhere, whether that's Luka or just, a little bit like one extra, 8 to 9K guy. But ownership considerations aside, I don't have any concerns about Giannis.
Yeah, I don't have any concerns either. I mean, the matchup versus Detroit, I hate to say it, but I agree with you. They aren't the best team in the NBA at this moment, although Cade Cunningham might say otherwise. But okay, so let's go through some of the numbers because I'm kind of wondering why Giannis might not have had huge games in the last two, even with the same situation. But I'm looking at these and like really Drew and Chris Middleton are the only other guys on the team that really score a lot unassisted. So I'm feeling like a lot of these possessions just have to be Giannis doing what he does and just either scoring or getting assists. So I'm our model is heavily favoring the over, or it was favoring the over in points. So it looks like it's just slightly over at this moment. But uh yeah, so I'm kind of thinking that this is a smash spot, even though it doesn't seem like one guy is running away with the ownership today. So how does he compare to the other sides?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's clearly the top pay up guy for me. Like, I don't think it's that close between him and Luca. You can always make a case for rostering Luca at low ownership, but when you have the matchup against Miami for Doncic compared to a matchup against Detroit for Giannis, and then Giannis is the more productive, stud option anyway, I think it's pretty clearly Giannis. Like in cash games for sure, going to Giannis over Luca. I prefer Giannis in tournaments as well, as long as you can find somewhere else in your lineup to be contrarian. Since last year, he's played 406 minutes without Holiday or Middleton on the floor. 35.5% usage rate, 49% assist percentage, 16.8% rebounding percentage. Just looks fantastic. It's the only argument I could see for getting away from him in tournaments is just that, he's projected to be the third highest owned guy on the slate. You can still get a nice ceiling by, instead of one extra 4K guy plus Giannis going with, like a Chris Paul plus Bam Adebayo or something like that, two 7 to 8K guys. But yeah, I mean, I'm not concerned by his recent games. One was against Utah. That's a tough matchup anyway. The other was against the Spurs. But we just have a pretty long track record now of what he does when he's on the floor without these guys, and it's really, really impressive.
Definitely. I'm just kind of wondering why he's not higher owned. He's the third most popular guy on the slate, but still, I think maybe it's just there's not a ton of value on today's slate, but there's a couple of guys we can go to on the Bucks. Now, one is his brother, Thanasis Antetokounmpo. He's been getting the start. The main thing here is he's pretty cheap at 3,100 on DraftKings and 4,200 on FanDuel. The other guy is George Hill at 3,800 on DraftKings, most likely getting the start tonight. He has been. So, do you have any confidence in these cheap value plays?
Confidence isn't the right word, but I think they look like good point per dollar options. There's just, I mean, it's a thin Milwaukee rotation right now because not only are you missing Middleton and Holiday, you're also missing Dante DiVincenzo. You're also missing Brook Lopez. So you have to give minutes to some of these guys. George Hill has averaged about 28 and a half, 29 minutes per game as a starter. I expect him to get around 30 or so minutes here. He's about a 0.75 fantasy point per minute guy. So he's not someone that you're super excited about, but at 3,800 on DraftKings, that's still a really, really good salary. Grayson Allen has been really productive this year without Middleton or Holiday on the floor. I don't want to read too much into that because it's only about 65 minutes and he has about a 68% true shooting percentage. So he's not going to be able to keep that up. But what I do notice is that his usage rate over those minutes is about 22.5%. Somebody other than Giannis is going to have to shoot the ball with this starting unit. It's probably not going to be George Hill. It's probably not going to be Thanasis. It's probably not going to be Connaughton. So it kind of points to Grayson Allen being, the next guy up to pick up some of that usage that's vacated by Middleton. So I think at 4,800, he looks pretty good. Connaughton should get minutes. I don't like him quite as much as I like Allen though. And then Thanasis, if he starts, he played 32 minutes last game. I don't expect him to play that many minutes again. I expect him to be in the mid-20s if he starts, because you do have Semi Ojeleye back. He had sat out the last game. I expect him to play more minutes than Mamukelashvili did in that last game. And then I also think there's a good chance that Bobby Portis picks up an extra couple of minutes as he works his way back from injury. So I'm not expecting Thanasis to play 32, but at 3,100 on DraftKings, even if he plays 24 or 25 minutes, he's going to look like a pretty good point per dollar value.
Yeah, that one, it's kind of tantalizing just because of the price and stacking up the Antetokounmpos. I mean, they're very complimentary in that price point. Do you see any other Bucks that you're looking at? I mean, Jordan Nwora is a guy that we had high hopes going into the season, but he seems to mostly disappoint. So what do you make of him?
Yeah, Nwora is kind of tough to get to here because we haven't really seen him getting, at least in the last game or two when Middleton was out. He didn't play quite as many minutes, I think, as some of us were expecting. Played about 24 minutes. I'm actually more interested in going to Portis. He had a good game last time, and it's not that he had a good game, but we know that Portis is a very productive player. He's averaged about 1.13 DraftKings points per minute since last year, and he went from 15 and a half minutes in his first game. Then he sat the first half of a back-to-back, played about a little over 19 minutes last game. If he picks up a couple more minutes and gives you, 21, 22 minutes at 4,400 in this spot, he's likely to be a pretty good value.
Nice. Let's go over to the Detroit side. The most popular play on DraftKings today is Cade Cunningham. Now, Cunningham, obviously, you guys know, number one draft pick this year. I always thought the draft lottery was rigged until Detroit won it. So, I don't know. Adam, let me just ask you off a hand. Did you ever think the lottery was rigged?
It seems like it at times, but I gave up on that pretty quickly when the Wizards got John Wall back in 2010. So kind of like you're saying, once the Pistons got it, it was like, okay, clearly it's not rigged. That's kind of how, because you've always had to talk like, oh, the Knicks aren't gonna, or the Knicks are going to get it because it's rigged, and then it's the Knicks didn't get it because it's rigged. But yeah, with the Wizards getting Wall a year that they had no business getting him, I kind of accepted that they weren't rigging it for the Wizards. That was for sure.
Yeah, there have been some suspiciously lucky teams, but yeah. I know because of the mechanisms, it's not rigged, but it's always fun to conspiracy theorize. Now, Cade Cunningham, this was really interesting in the first game that he debuted in. That was on Saturday. He played a lot of minutes in the first half. It was like 14 or 15 minutes, if I remember correctly. I'm just pulling up this game so I can get the exact numbers, but he then proceeded to, in the second half, play very limited minutes. So he only played 4.5 minutes in the second half after getting 14 and a half in the first half. So I'm thinking that this minutes limit could go up a decent amount today. What do you think?
Yeah, that's my thought as well. I expect him to play more minutes than he did last game. I'm not expecting him to come out and play 30 minutes or anything like that. But even if he gets to 23 or 24 minutes, especially on DraftKings at 3,600, there's just really nothing but upside there. On FanDuel, it's a lot more difficult because assuming he's not going to play more than low to mid 20s, it's difficult for him to put up a score that you really have to have at his price point there. But at 3,600 on DraftKings, I think he looks good. And he was also very, very involved in that first game. He only shot 1 for 8 from the field, but it was good for about a 22.5% usage rate. He had 10 rebound chances in his 18.9 minutes. He led the team with 7 potential assists. So especially for someone where you're expecting them not to play a ton of minutes, it's really nice to see that he was just doing everything on the floor, getting a ton of opportunities to rebound and get assists in addition to scoring. And it makes sense when you consider the players that are around him. There's, Jeremy Grant's good, Sadiq Bey is pretty good, but they're not. There's nobody on this team that's really going to keep Cade Cunningham from doing things when he's on the floor.
Definitely, yeah. And it's funny because after his performance, his salary on DraftKings dropped 100. So it's always funny to see those changes. And now I think that he's a good play, but compared to the ownership, how are you handling him today?
I think that, so right now we have him projected at 38%. That's actually exactly what I got in the crunch that I did before the show. So, obviously my final one might be a little bit higher or lower, but it just tells me that I think in the context of building lineups, Cunningham's owned about where he should be. I wouldn't be upset if I got more, but at the same time, I still kind of want to be cautious because I try not to go too crazy on value plays where I think there's a capped ceiling because of a minutes restriction, and especially when they're popular. That is the case here with Cunningham. So I think he's a very good value. I think there are also some other values that aren't as safe as Cunningham, but that also give you more minutes upside that are lower owned that I don't mind getting to. So as is, I just kind of think that Cunningham's ownership is where it should be.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's hard to argue with that because in our boom bust tool, we have them at 38% ownership and 34% optimal. So the field is definitely adjusting correctly to the spot. Now, 34% optimal is the highest on the slate. So this could be a situation where you just lock in the best play and try to make it up in ownership elsewhere. So I think both approaches are definitely viable today. Now, the rest of the team, Sadiq Bey has really stood out to me. He's been getting a lot of rebounds compared to last year, and he's been really aggressive. I thought he was more of just like a catch and shoot guy, but he's been a pretty good fantasy performer so far. He's 6,600 on DraftKings, 6,500 on FanDuel. How are you handling Bey?
Yeah, the rebounding numbers for him have looked good this year. He's second to Isaiah Stewart with 11.2 potential rebounds per game, and rebounding at a high rate, like you said. I have trouble getting to him at this salary and on the slate, just because I do think there's going to be enough value where I'm able to get up to like 8 to 9K guys, as opposed to having to go to guys like Sadiq Bey or even Jeremy Grant. So 1 fantasy point per minute for Bey so far this season. He's likely to play about 34 minutes here. I think he's fine, but I think that there's just other options I like a bit more.
Seeing some people chatting about Bam Adebayo in chat, and I see Grain Grippa Candy Paint Drippa says, I expect Bam to play if he went through shoot around yesterday. So that's always funny, but just offhand, do you have any insight on Bam if he's playing?
Full participant in practice yesterday, so I'm assuming he plays until we hear otherwise. But is still listed as questionable, which is kind of weird. Like I thought he would have been upgraded to probable by now, but since he did practice yesterday, I'm assuming he goes.
Awesome. That's what I like to hear, because I guess there's one other questionable guy, Aiden, that's going to be important to hear. So I think LeBron is questionable too, but
Ayton feels more questionable to me than Bam, but who knows?
Yeah, and LeBron, since last year, has always been questionable,
right.
So it's hard to really read into that.
Right. Like I just kind of LeBron's like Embiid. I just ignore when they're questionable, and then when they get ruled out, I adjust.
Yeah, that's when you just start throwing the mouse at the computer.
Right.
All right. Other Pistons, you got Jeremy Grant, who he missed a couple of games, but he's been playing pretty good minutes. And then you got the centers, Stewart and Olynyk, who on a per minute basis are good, but they're splitting 48. So any other guys you're looking at?
I think outside of Cunningham, I'm actually most interested in Olynyk from the Pistons, just because I think that, for one, he's a really, really good point per minute guy at 1.17 DraftKings points per minute. But I think he's got a lot of volatility in his game from a minute standpoint as well. We saw 2 games ago, the game that Cade Cunningham played, actually, we saw about 27 minutes from Olynyk off the bench. He closed that game. Then last game, he played 20.9 minutes, but that was a game where it was a blowout. Even if he was going to close the game, there was no need for it because the game was over. So I think that, it's certainly not somebody that I trust, but at 5,700, he's still projected to play his average of like 24 minutes. And I think that there's a good number of games where he ends up playing 28 minutes or so. And given the level of production that he offers, I think that that's a pretty appealing tournament option, as long as there's not a whole lot of ownership going there. Right now, we have him projected at about 13%. So, not super low owned, but I do like him in tournaments. I think I'd actually rather go to him than Sadiq Bey at the same ownership percentage. I think Bey's minutes are a lot more secure, but he's also more expensive, and he also produces at a lower rate than Olynyk. So I think that the combination of salary and then the per minute production that the ceiling that gives you for Olynyk, if you get lucky on minutes, makes me like Olynyk a little bit more.
Yeah, and I like it. He's definitely a contrary in play today. A little bit pricey compared to the minutes, but if Milwaukee goes big, you could see Olynyk and Stewart on the court at the same time. They've done that a little bit so far this season, so that could definitely help them get there. Let's go to Miami at Dallas. Miami, Bam Adebayo, we're expecting to play. He looks like a pretty strong option, I would say. At 7,500 on DraftKings, just a little bit underpriced. And then Jimmy Butler and the rest of the crew might be priced as if Bam could be out. So Bam's really standing out as the best option on this team to me. What are you making of it?
Yeah, Bam looks great, particularly on DraftKings at 7,500. He is having a great year from a fantasy standpoint. 1.33 DraftKings points per minute, but his usage rate's up to 27.9%. He was at about 24% last year. Maybe that comes down a little bit going forward, but so far you've seen him be more aggressive offensively. He's rebounding at a really high rate, 21.7% rebounding percentage. I believe he's third or fourth in the NBA in rebound chances per game. Yeah, third with 22 rebound chances per game in 31.5 minutes. So he's getting a ton of opportunities there. He's converting on them. He's just mispriced at 7,500. And it's a situation where I'm assuming if he plays that he's good to go. He only missed the one game. So, and it never has seemed like a really serious injury. Even the game he missed, if I remember correctly, he went from probable to not playing. So it was kind of just like they weren't expecting him to miss. So at 7,500, I think he looks great. Outside of him, it's kind of just, tournament flyers. Jimmy Butler is always a high upside option. He has a 29.3% usage rate this year, but he also is relatively expensive. Kyle Lowry's playing good minutes in competitive games, but he's been pretty not involved offensively, only a 15.5% usage rate. You've seen Tyler Hero with a 30% usage rate this year. I think that's contributing to it makes it difficult for Lowry because you're always going to be on the floor with at least basically two of Butler, Bam, Hero. And if Hero's going to have a 30% usage rate and Butler and Bam are going to shoot more than they have in the past, it doesn't leave a whole lot for Lowry. So I think that makes him a little bit concerning. And then Hero, on the other hand, is rebounding at a high rate this year. The usage rate is up. I think he offers a high ceiling, but at the same time, his salary has increased to where I'm certainly not comfortable paying 6,900 for him.
Yeah, definitely. He has been getting pretty good minutes, but you'd think that someone would have to be out for him to really go over the top. Bam does contribute in a lot of different categories. So I guess that probably went into the pricing here. I agree with Lowry. Just kind of, it seems like this team fit isn't the greatest with Jimmy Butler really being the distributor, and Bam also getting assists. So that's kind of something to watch out for if Lowry won't be quite as productive in fantasy this year. Now on the Dallas side, Luka, always in the same conversation as Giannis, but he's about the same price, and Miami's a really tough matchup where Detroit is a good one. So I'm really heavily favoring Giannis on a 1-to-1 comparison. But do you think Luka is valuable tonight, and how would you play this in the GPP?
I prefer Giannis just because, again, like I think you can never discount Luka's ceiling because he does so much well when he's on the floor and he's capable of just giving you a monster game at any point. But Miami's been the most efficient defensive team in the league by like 3 possessions this year. They're playing really, really well defensively. Doncic has never been better without Porzingis. Like I'm still not willing to say that he's worse without Porzingis, but I don't think he's not a better fantasy producer. So him being out doesn't help there. The only real argument that you can make in favor of Doncic is that he is projected for like half the ownership of Giannis, and given his ceiling, that's always somewhat appealing. But I think there's a big enough gap between them that I still basically see it as either I'm going to get to Giannis, or in lineups where I don't, I'm more likely to just not pay up for an 11K guy and get one extra, Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell, Chris Paul type guy into my lineup, Bam, Valanciunas, like guys like that, as opposed to going to Luka and having a similar roster construction to the Giannis teams, because I do think you're giving up quite a bit in just basically replicating that lineup and then putting Luka in, because I think Giannis just looks so much better here.
Agreed. Yeah. The difference in value is extremely significant. So Luka, he's still pretty high owned compared to Giannis, about half the projected ownership. So I think our numbers on the boom bust tool say that Luka's about 13% chance to be in the optimal lineup, and Giannis is 30%. So that definitely is telling me, giving me more confidence to really heavily favor Giannis. Let's talk about the other Dallas guys. The big news here is Maxi Kleber is out in addition to Porzingis being out. So they're really short on bigs. In the last game, Dwight Powell picked up a lot of run when Maxi Kleber missed most of the game due to injury. But they do have Willie Cauley-Stein, who could compete with Powell for minutes. They also have Boban, who seemingly always gets a few starts a year and absolutely destroys the slate. So I'm thinking for Bam Adebayo, they probably go to Powell. Seems like a pretty good guy to put up against him. But what do you think?
So one thing to point out quickly, Eric just mentioned it in chat, but Rod Beard, beat reporter for the Pistons, said he doesn't think there's a minute restriction on Cade Cunningham. So that goes from everything we talked about to just play Cade Cunningham, I think, especially on DraftKings at 3,600. But now he's a good play on FanDuel as well if he really isn't going to be on a minutes restriction. As far as Dallas's front court goes, I'm basically just looking at what they did last game. You get the second half because Kleber only played about 7 minutes last game and then left. So you get the entire second half to kind of see how Dallas's rotations looked. You got about 16 minutes in that second half from Dwight Powell. Willie Cauley-Stein played almost every minute behind him. Moses Brown played the other 1 to 2. So I think, you could see Boban play a handful of minutes. You could see Moses Brown play a handful of minutes, but I expect it to be Dwight Powell playing 30 to 32 minutes here, especially because if you have Bam and Dedmon, and you're missing Kleber, you're missing Porzingis for Dallas, you're not going to really be able to, or it's not likely that they're going to run lineups with Dorian Finney-Smith at center or something. So the biggest risk to Dwight Powell would be that Willie Cauley-Stein plays well, or Moses Brown, or whoever plays well, and steals some minutes. But I have to think going in, the plan is for Powell to play 30 plus minutes here, which makes him look like a pretty good value. He's around a 0.8 fantasy point per minute guy, and he's only 4K on DraftKings.
Nice. Yeah, I agree. He seems like someone that is definitely a major building block here. Now, how does he stack up to the rest of the guys tonight?
The difficulty with Powell is that center, as usual, is a really strong position today. And, on FanDuel, if you roster him, then you're giving up the position, assuming he's only a center. I don't actually have it in front of me. But on DraftKings, clearly it means you can only roster one of Gobert, Valanciunas, Bam. There's a lot of guys that Richaun Holmes is favorably priced. There's a very high opportunity cost at center today. And on top of that, you also have to keep in mind that we may not have DeAndre Ayton news by the time that the Dwight Powell game starts. So either you can add DeAndre Ayton to the list of, high opportunity cost centers, or more importantly, there's the potential that you're going to get JaVale McGee playing 20 plus minutes tonight at 3,400, who would just, I think, obviously be a better play than Dwight Powell. So in addition to opportunity cost at center, there is potentially a massive late swap advantage if you can keep these spots open long enough to get DeAndre Ayton news.
Hypothetically, if Boban started, would you like JaVale McGee starting or Boban?
It's kind of the same thing.
No, I'm not suggesting Boban has any chance to start tonight.
I feel I would actually prefer McGee just because I know he can stay on the floor.
I don't know about that, but with Maxi playing a decent amount of minutes at the 4 and Porzingis out, do you see any other opportunities for guys to pick up enough minutes to be good fantasy plays?
There's not a ton that stands out as far as priorities go. I do think Jalen Brunson at 5,500 becomes a pretty interesting tournament option. He's between a 0.9 and 1 fantasy point per minute guy. We've already seen him playing a big role off the bench this year, but taking out Kleber and taking out Porzingis makes it pretty likely that he's in the closing lineup, I think. I don't think it's hard to imagine that he replaces, assuming Reggie Bullock starts, I don't think it's hard to imagine that Brunson replaces him in the closing lineup. And you get around 30 minutes from Brunson at 5,500. So he's someone where, I think you will get some ownership going to Powell, but I think that, Brunson maybe goes a little bit under the radar.
Yeah, that's interesting. Brunson, obviously, we like him when Luke is out. He's kind of priced up a little bit today, but I like that he could get some more minutes here. Guys, if you haven't already checked out Jock Market, It's kind of like the stock market, except with jocks. I guess that's why it's called Jock Market, huh? But you gotta put money on different players, and based on how they rank in the final standings of fantasy points scored, you win a cash payout. So we have our Jock Market projections under our NBA projections page. Basically, the top scoring player, and that's $25 per share, and then it goes down for each additional spot. So it's a lot of fun. You can use the promo code Awesemo on Jock Market for a $50 bonus on your first deposit. And you can play for NFL, MLB, NBA, PGA, and NHL, pretty much all of the different sports. So it's a different twist on fantasy. It's a lot of fun. All right, let's go to Houston at LA. So Houston, kind of a rough team so far. That I mean, we were expecting them to be one of the worst teams in the league, but they have some really interesting fantasy players with Kevin Porter Jr., a point guard that can kind of contribute in every category. And then you got Christian Wood, who is kind of a good complementary piece because he doesn't do a lot with the ball in his hands, but he gets a lot of assisted buckets and he can rebound a lot too. So these two guys may be pretty good fantasy assets this year. But how do you like him tonight in a matchup versus Lakers where it might be a little bit tough?
Yeah, I mean, Houston just scares me as a team because they are not very good and there's always going to be some blowout risk. They're 10-point dogs tonight in Los Angeles, but they do offer very high ceilings in tournaments. And I think that the fact that they're going to have a bunch of blowouts where you lose several minutes for the starters typically is going to keep ownership down a little bit. And it's also going to keep pricing down. And I think you're seeing that particularly with Kevin Porter Jr., who's 6,200 on DraftKings, I think 5,900 on FanDuel. He's in competitive games, you're getting 36, 37 minutes from this guy. But his average playing time is only like 29 minutes per game this year because he had a little bit of foul trouble. He had an injury, and then there's also been blowouts. So I think he's really underpriced for his ceiling. He's averaged 0.91 DraftKings points per minute this year, but his rate suggests that he's going to just have some monster games mixed in there. 25% usage rate, 29% assist percentage. Not the most efficient shooter, but that doesn't mean he's going to shoot poorly every single game. And he's got plenty of opportunities on this team to put up monster games. So I think in tournaments, Porter looks like a very high upside option. I think Christian Wood has a high ceiling, but it's very difficult to prioritize him when he's more expensive than Bam. He's more expensive than Gobert. He's basically the same price as Valanciunas. So in tournaments, he's okay, but it's really tough to get a lot of him. And then Jalen Green is still someone that I'm mixing in quite a bit because he also is playing 34 plus minutes in competitive games. He's averaged 0.81 DraftKings points per minute so far in his rookie year, about a 21.5% usage rate. But he's a really talented player, one of the top picks in this year's draft. He's still only 5,800. I don't mind going there based on talent alone. And then the other piece that I would mention is Şengün. There's a couple of ways for him to get there today. Daniel Tice and Jae'Sean Tate are both questionable. If Tice were to sit, that would potentially open the door for more minutes for Şengün. But also, he's been playing the backup minutes to Christian Wood. And then last game against the Lakers, he actually got some playing time alongside Wood as well. And, you're talking about a bigger Lakers front court. So I think that at 4,300, the opportunity cost, once again, is high because he's a center. But Şengün's a very good fantasy point per minute guy, 1.16 DraftKings points per minute. At 4,300, if he plays his normal 20 minutes or so, he projects as a fine play, but nothing special. But if he just finds some way into an extra few minutes, whether that's Woods foul trouble or blowout or whatever, it doesn't matter. If he just finds his way into a few extra minutes, he's likely to put up a really good score at 4,300.
Yeah, I have to admit, I definitely didn't know that guy's name was pronounced Şengün. Yeah, I mean, anytime you got a center that's going to play minutes, that's pretty big for fantasy. So I think if Tice is out, that's pretty interesting. If Tate is out, do you see that having much impact in fantasy?
Probably not. I mean, so he's been rebounding well this year, but it's not like he's a high usage guy. I don't think he would be someone that really has that leads to like a bump in production for anybody. I think it would open up more playing time for Eric Gordon, but I don't anticipate him playing a lot more than 30 minutes anyway. Where I think it could actually have an impact is $3,100 David Nwaba. That's somebody that in this matchup, I think you could see play a decent amount of minutes anyway. He played 10 minutes in the first half last game. He's known for his ability to defend. And you're talking about a team that has Westbrook and LeBron for him to be on the floor against. If you take Jayshawn Tate out, I think it makes a lot of sense for Nwaba to slide into the starting lineup and potentially play, mid-20s in minutes. He's not the best offensive player, but he is around a 0.8 to 0.85 fantasy point per minute guy. So at 3,100, that would actually look like a pretty good value, especially because at the small forward position, there's not much opportunity cost.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Definitely could get some more run tonight for defensive reasons. So I like that call. I have these games out of order. So this is actually the last game on the slate. My bad, guys. So if you're going to play a late swap on the slate, like late swap scenarios, the Suns game locks at 10 p.m. Eastern. This is at 10:30. So you might be able to take advantage of some of these guys being out. Now on the Lakers side, you have LeBron questionable. He did play the last 2 games, so it's a little bit tough to know what to make of that, but I lean towards him playing. Then Dwight Howard missed last game. He was a very late scratch, so I don't have a read if he's playing or not. But if do you think Howard playing or not is something we should be keeping an eye on, or is it pretty much irrelevant?
I think it's the only way I think it's really relevant is as far as, if you wanted to punt with some $3,600 Dwight Howard, that wouldn't be the worst idea in the world if he's active, but it's not like it's a great play regardless. So I don't think it makes too big of a deal. You like last game, it got you 30 minutes of Avery Bradley, him being out. Bradley's 3K, but he also just isn't going to have a role in this team offensively. So, there's always some value in guys playing 30 minutes at 3K, but there's no real reason to think he's going to be doing anything alongside LeBron and Westbrook and Davis. So I don't think projecting Howard in or out makes a huge difference here.
Yeah, I think Avery Bradley could be interesting now that you mention it, where he did play decent minutes last game. He's 3K. So that's something that could be an interesting swap, but we don't plan our late swaps around Avery Bradley, of course. Now, what about LeBron and AD? I mean, they're both around 10K on DraftKings and FanDuel, and Westbrook is about the same price. It's like pretty rare you have 3 guys all priced as high on one team, and it kind of shows that these guys aren't good values because they have to split up this production between the 3 of them. So do you have any inclination to go to any of those 3 guys?
Not really. I mean, so it's the caveat, it's a 5-game slate. All 3 are clearly very, very high upside players. They're in a good matchup against Houston. The issue I run into is just that they're priced kind of at this point for somebody to be sitting because we had, several games with LeBron out. So Westbrook has gone from his $8,500 price tag up to $9,900. Davis is up to $9,700. LeBron at 10-2. They're all capable of having a monster game regardless, but I think they're all a little bit overpriced for all 3 players to be active when you consider that, it cuts into Westbrook's assist numbers and his rebounding numbers and his usage. Westbrook cuts into James' assist numbers a bit, and his rebounding numbers are down a little bit this year. Davis still typically gets his, but 9,700 is a pretty expensive price tag for him anyway. So it's tough for me to really recommend any of these guys outside of just the occasional lineup where you need a lower owned, pay up option that's a little bit cheaper than Giannis. That's kind of how they get in for me, but there's nothing that really stands out.
Agreed. Now, if LeBron somehow doesn't play this game, that could change quickly. So it will pay to have some roster spots open later and some salary behind those. So I don't hate putting in Westbrook or AD and maybe late swapping, depending on how the injury news breaks tonight. Do you see any other value in the Lakers?
No, I mean, there's going to be a game at some point where maybe like Kent Bazemore figures out how to beat a 4K price tag or $4,200 price tag, but there's been nothing indicating that that's going to happen anytime soon. If I had to go to anybody, I think Melo at 5,300 makes some sense, but there's just really not a whole lot here at their current prices for me.
Yeah, agreed. Now let's go to New Orleans and Phoenix. I'll start on the New Orleans side. Brandon Ingram is doubtful for this one, so we're assuming he's not playing. And that he's a pretty high usage and assist guy, so that should open up some value. Meanwhile, Joval has been playing really big minutes recently, but in the last 2 games, his minutes cut a little bit. So uh his price at 8,500 looks about right to me, but what are you seeing here?
Yeah, I mean, I still like the ceiling that Joval offers, averaging 34 minutes per game overall this season. Did play 32 last or 33 about last game, as you said. So you didn't get that 36 or 37-minute game, but he's been extremely productive when he's on the floor, and he's second in the NBA in rebound chances per game. He's averaging, I think, 1.3 DraftKings points per minute. So I think that there's still plenty of upside for him at 8,500. I think he is at least at a price point where he's not just like a lock him in type guy, especially on this slate where you do have Bam, you do have Gobert, you have Ayton. The opportunity cost that we talked about with some of the weaker center options certainly applies to these guys at the top as well. So I like Joval quite a bit here, but just kind of going to be rotating him through. It is a situation where I typically end up paying a bit more attention to ownership. For example, like somebody like Cade Cunningham, you look, assuming he's not on a minutes restriction, and it's kind of just like, okay, nobody in that price range offers anywhere close to the same range of outcomes. When you get a center position like this, where you can, make a case for whoever you think the best play is, but realistically, in a one game sample, any of Joval, Bam, Gobert, Ayton can be the highest scorer. You just want to pay a little bit more attention to ownership, I think, and I'm typically just willing to take the one that other people don't want.
Nice. Now with Ingram out, we have some potential for some of the ball handlers on New Orleans to get some more assists and points. There are 2 guys I'm looking at here, Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Devontae Graham. Of the 2, I'd say Devontae Graham's much better price on DraftKings, while NAW is much better priced on FanDuel. How are they stacking up for you?
Yeah, I agree with that. And Graham is the one that, all things equal, I would prefer. He's been a higher usage guy than Alexander Walker this year. He's got a higher assist percentage than Alexander Walker. And then if you take Brandon Ingram off the floor, 83 minutes for Alexander Walker, 20 usage rate increases to 25.4%. But in 69 minutes for Graham, his usage percentage increases to 27.9. So, he's gotten a bump without Ingram, just like Alexander Walker has, but he's just been the more productive player in terms of points per minute and opportunities this year. So all things equal, I prefer him on DraftKings where he's cheaper than Alexander Walker. I obviously prefer him.
Nice. Anyone else from New Orleans, like maybe Herbert Jones or Josh Hart?
Yeah, I was gonna say those would be the 2 that get mentioned. Herbert Jones, not a very good fantasy producer, but he did play about 36 minutes last game. It's just one of those where he's 3,500, and so if you're playing some of guys that are going to play mid-30s in minutes at 3,500, even if they're not offensively minded players, they're still decent options. But Josh Hart, I think, is actually pretty interesting because he's only 4,900 on DraftKings. He played about 31 minutes last game, but he's been coming back from injury. So I think there's a chance, at least, I'm not saying it's the most likely thing to happen, but I think there's a chance that you get that 34, 35-minute Josh Hart game here. There's certainly minutes available. It's just a matter of, do the Pelicans want to run him out there for that many minutes? But the fact that he played 30 or 31 last game makes me think that health isn't really a concern for him at this point, and maybe you get a few more minutes than most people are projecting.
Nice. All right. Now on the other side, the DeAndre Ayton being questionable news is the one we're keeping an eye on here. You were mentioning that JaVale McGee would stand out if Ayton is out, and McGee's only 3,400 on DraftKings and 4,300 on FanDuel. So that's the obvious question. If Ayton is out, like, first of all, we might not get this news until well after lock, but how would JaVale McGee stack up with Andre Drummond last night, where, like, obviously that was a play you really needed to win?
It would be pretty close. Like, the only reason that I guess I would say Drummond is a little bit better is because it would be surprising if McGee played 30 minutes or anything close. But if you were to start here, I would assume you're getting like 24 minutes or so. He's a very, very productive player when he's on the floor. He has been for basically ever. So far this year, 1.19 DraftKings points per minute. And at only 3,400, it's not like there's a lot of risk. The only real risk is the opportunity cost. So he would be the closest thing on this slate to Andre Drummond. I don't think he's quite the same level. Like I don't know. I might end up with 100% if you were to start, but wouldn't be surprised if I had, like 70 or 80. Whereas last night there was basically no chance in hell I wasn't playing 100% Drummond.
Yeah, definitely. All right, thank you, Cowboy Smith X, for the super chat. He says, which combo do you like better, Luka / Barnes? I assume that's Harrison Barnes versus Butler and Mitchell, Donovan Mitchell, I assume. So do you have a lean between Luka Barnes or Butler / Mitchell?
It's Butler Mitchell for me. I'll touch on it when we get to that game. I'm going to have an absurd amount of Utah in general tonight, it looks like, but Mitchell in particular. I'm not super comfortable with it, but just from the stuff I've ran, it's the Butler Mitchell side, and I'm pretty much living and dying with Utah.
That's interesting. I'm leaning maybe towards the first one. For some reason, Donovan Mitchell is really not standing out in our models. Now, he has only averaged about 36 fantasy points per game. This 38 on DraftKings, 36 on FanDuel this year, in 32 minutes a game, which is down from previous years. But compared to his price of 8,800 on DraftKings and 8K on FanDuel, that seems like paying a lot for that kind of average. I don't know. We'll talk about him in a sec. All right, let's go back to New Orleans. Phoenix. So Chris Paul and Devin Booker, obviously really great fantasy producers. How are you feeling about them tonight?
I think they look really good here. The Pels have struggled a bit defensively. They're 25th in defensive rating so far this year, playing at a middle of the pack pace. But you have pretty just favorable price points on the Suns. 7,600 for Chris Paul. His playing time, he's averaging 31 minutes per game this year, but in competitive games, he's actually playing a bit more than I expected him to early in the season. You still have Cameron Payne out, so I think that helps to solidify his playing time as well. Payne being, a good backup that makes it a lot easier for Phoenix to limit Paul to 30 to 31 minutes. Elfrid Payton, none of those things, and doesn't make it easy to keep Chris Paul off the floor. So I think if this game's competitive, there's certainly a path to him playing mid-30s, but even if he plays 32 minutes or so at 7,600, he's going to look like a good option. His usage rate's down a little bit this year, but he's got a near 50% assist percentage. So I think that even if you see the assist percentage come down a little bit going forward, it's very likely that is just, it's replaced by his usage rate getting back to where it was last year. So I think Paul looks really good. Booker, same thing. Pretty good matchup for him. Good price tag at 8K. His usage is down a little bit this year, but his assist percentage is up as well. So another situation where I think, maybe you're seeing that trade-off, and over as the sample grows, it balances back out to what we typically get, where Booker's at about a 32% usage rate instead of 30%. But either way, at 8K, I think he looks good. And then whoever starts at center, I think, is in a pretty good spot as well.
All right, awesome. Now let's do some Hall of Fame here. So guys, I've been blown away by how many screenshots we've been seeing in Twitter, and it's awesome to see the community have so much success. And the NBA season has been good to us so far. The rules to this, you have to have the Awesemo avatar, so just go to awesemo.com/avatar to get that, and place top 3 in a contest of over 5,000 people, and then tweet it out to Awesemo HOF. Then you'll get that free month of Awesemo Platinum. So first we got J Hood 5379. He won 100K last night with the big, I think it was a $10 tournament on FanDuel. So beat out a lot of competition. He played a little leverage against Ja Morant, questionable with Tyus Jones. So I think not many people were on that. So that was pretty awesome. And George Niang on that completed Philadelphia team. So he definitely had some nice plays there. Walked away with a cool 100K. So congratulations, Jay Hood. We got Nick Lamaro, and he won the single entry $1 turn. He got third in the single entry on $1 on DraftKings. There's a lot of people in that, so it's just as hard to finish on top of that, if not harder than some of the higher dollar tournaments. He walked away with $150. Matt Hartford, he said he's been playing a year, and he got third for 1,500 the other night. Single bullet on Showdown. So that's pretty awesome. Of course, we're doing a ton with NFL, NBA, and all that. I cracked the top 3. Now where's my free month of Awesemo? What kind of jackass is this? Awesemo DFS. Third place. Barely qualified for this, but I'll give him some props. All right, we got Iron Mike, $1,000 in NBA, finished first. So congrats to Iron Mike. And then K2 Temple Owl walked away with 1250, finishing 4th and 5th. So that's a pretty nice takedown there. So congrats, guys. If you have a nice night tonight, don't hesitate to let us know. We always like seeing people in the community have success. So, all right, we got one more game here. We got Sacramento at Utah. Now, Sacramento, they're kind of same squad as last year, but the matchup versus Utah is definitely a tough one. They have some decent fantasy producers like Fox, Halliburton. Harrison Barnes has surprisingly been like a pretty good fantasy player this year, so I don't know what to make of that quite. Rashawn Holmes. Now, usually a matchup versus Utah is pretty tough for fantasy scoring because they're a pretty good defense. What are you making of these Kings?
Yeah, pretty rough matchup here for Sacramento. I think that 6,300 for Rashawn Holmes is still a pretty good price tag. In competitive games, you should get around 30 minutes from him. He's averaged well over a fantasy point per minute this year. He's top 10 in he's 7th in rebound chances per game, despite only averaging 27.7 minutes per game. So a ton of opportunities for him. The issue is just that, one, there's so many good centers to go to. And then also he does have to contend with Rudy Gobert and just a very, very difficult Utah team. So not a priority for me, but I do think that he's at a price point where it's not like it would be shocking if you got 36 or 40 fantasy points out of Holmes. He has that level of talent and production. De'Aaron Fox on FanDuel is pretty cheap. His assist numbers are down this year, which is kind of concerning. His potential assists are down about 3 per game, but at the same time, I don't have a really good answer for why that is. Like, I thought maybe Tyrese Halliburton was taking more of them. He's getting a little bit more, but it's not a huge difference. Davion Mitchell basically replacing what DeLon Wright was doing last year in terms of potential assists. So I think maybe that you just see that go up going forward for Fox. And then another reason he's not producing at as high a level this year is that he's just shooting worse than he's going to do over the course of the season, off to a poor shooting start. So not the matchup where you expect him to get right, but the salary's really fallen on FanDuel. There's upside on DraftKings, but I think it's a lot more difficult to get there. And then, you mentioned Harrison Barnes. His usage rate's up a bit this year. He's leading the team in minutes at about 37 minutes per game. I don't really want to pay 7,400 for him against Utah in 150 lineups on a 5-game slate. I would assume I have more than 0, but it's certainly not something I'm like targeting or singling out.
Yeah, agreed. He might be that guy that just everyone looks over and then if you get him on the right day, you could have a big score. So we actually have him as a little bit positive leverage at 14% ownership and 17% optimal for Barnes. So you're going to want a couple guys like that in each lineup, but just an average play on today's slate, I would say. Holmes definitely looks cheap on DraftKings. I like that one. Besides that, do you see anyone? Maybe Harkless looks like maybe a value option, but he starts, but he can't get too excited about that, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to go anywhere else, I would take some shots on $3,800 Davion Mitchell. This seems like a game where if the game's close, it seems likely that he's going to be in the closing lineup to defend Donovan Mitchell. So I think that, we basically with Sacramento, that Fox, Holmes, and Barnes are closing, and then it's most likely going to be 2 out of Halliburton, Hield, and Mitchell. If Sacramento is behind, you're probably going to have Hield out there to shoot, and then it's going to be 1 of Halliburton, Mitchell. But if it's like a back and forth game, or if they're somehow ahead, Davion Mitchell I think would almost certainly be in there to defend Donovan. So there's a path to 30 minutes for Davion Mitchell. The issue is that he's averaging 0.67 DraftKings points per minute. So not only do you have to get lucky with the minutes, you have to get lucky with the production, but he is cheap and he should be low on.
Nice. On the Utah side, I'd say Sacramento isn't the fastest paced matchup, but they are projected for 116 teams or 116 points tonight. The Jazz. Actually, I shouldn't have said that. The Kings are sixth fastest this year, so decent pace. 116 point projection. The guy that's really jumping out is Rudy Gobert to me. He's been really upping his game in the rebounds this year, averaging 16 so far. Now, that might be a little bit of a flash in the pan, but he's only sorry, I have all this information in different spots here. All right. Rudy Gobert is 8,100 on DraftKings tonight, 8,200 on FanDuel. We just got Bam Adebayo is playing tonight, so that's good to know.
Cool.
How do you feel about Gobert?
I think Gobert looks great. Even if you just kind of like throw this year away, he'd look like a good option here. But you can't just completely ignore what he's done out of the gate for Utah. Leads the league in rebound chances per game. He has a 28.5% total rebounding percentage. Like you said, I don't think he maintains that, but he's still going to be mid-20s most likely. His usage rate this year is up to 20.1%, which, while that's not high, he's one of the most efficient players in the league. So pretty much every time he shoots, it's an extra 2 points for your lineup. So, that's, again, maybe it comes down a little bit, but it's good to see that that's been there. And 8,100 just really isn't an expensive price tag anyway. So I think Gobert is one of the best plays on the slate. He's the guy from Utah that I feel the most confident in. I am going to be getting a lot of other guys that I feel less confident in, but Gobert, I just feel really, really good about.
Nice. One thing I've noticed is the Jazz have been scoring a lot of ISO this year so far. They've only had 18 assists per game when the league average is more like 23 or 24. So I was wondering if you have any insight into, like, if they don't score many assisted buckets, that might hurt the numbers of guys like Conley and Mitchell. So I think that's a reason why Mitchell's numbers have been down so far this year. What do you think?
Yeah,
about
and it's
that?
weird. His assist percentage is actually up, but the assists aren't great, like you were saying. I think also, though, part of the reason his numbers are down is that he hasn't been shooting very well. 53.1% true shooting percentage this year for him. Since the start of last year, I think he was a few points higher. It's loading right now, but 57.1% true shooting percentage. I think that to me, it looks like stuff that probably evens out going forward, because I mean, this is essentially the same Utah team. You have Pascal, you have Whiteside, but that doesn't really matter. I think that a lot of this stuff kind of just evens out, and you still have for Mitchell a 33.2% usage rate this year, 24.1% assist percentage. So I think that I don't feel good about how much Donovan Mitchell I'm getting to tonight, but I also think he's shot poorly this year. I think it's a good matchup against Sacramento. As a team, they haven't been very good defensively. Davion Mitchell's a good individual defender, but that's not something that typically is going to like just deter me from playing somebody like Mitchell. I think he's going to have a lot of opportunities there. He's had, I believe, more games than not with at least 20 field goal attempts this year. So I just think that it kind of just seems like he's getting the worst production he can so far, and he's still averaging 1.2 DraftKings points per minute.
Yeah, I think the big difference between Mitchell and some other higher priced players is the rebounding. I mean, Mitchell is a good points and assists guy, but so far this year he's only averaged 4 rebounds, so that can explain why. I think that's the main reason why I think he's overpriced compared to some other guys, but certainly a fantastic player. We did get a super chat from Big Money NJ. He says, I know this is crazy talk, but can we fade Giannis a bit because this game could be a blowout and his minutes could be cut short? What do you think about that?
So that's not like the reasoning for why I would do it, but it's one of the ways that you can get there if you do. Like the reasoning just purely would come down to ownership and what like your alternative lineups look like, the kind of upside that you're getting if you don't pay all the way up for Giannis. But that's certainly one of the ways you don't get there. Like Giannis can get in foul trouble. He can somehow play poorly. The game can be a blowout. It's a 4-point spread. So I'm not looking at this game saying, I'm not like worried about Milwaukee blowing out Detroit, because I think if you're worried about this game blowing out, you kind of run into a situation where all season long, you're going to be worried about every single game blowing out. But that's definitely one of the paths to him failing.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's one of the most reliable guys today, but that's only reliable to the tune of 35% in our projections here. 48% chance of boom of 35 of being in the optimal lineup. So that's one reference point you can use from our tools. So make sure to check out those. Now, we do have a whole hour-long show leading you guys up to lock with Eric and Greg. So, guys, good luck tonight. Stay tuned for all the breaking news up to lock.
Very painful. Well, you're a big, strong guy. Oh, yo.
I don't remember more of the lines. I haven't seen that movie in so long. It's like a legitimately old movie now.
It's legitimately old, dude. I don't even want to. Watching like Saved by the Bell on Netflix, it makes me feel absurd. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the NBA Live Before Lock show presented by Jock Market. I'm Eric Lindquist, excited to be here talking some NBA action with you. We've got a fun 5-gamer that's on tap for tonight. Very staggered start times. We get to talk late swap. Yay, everybody's favorite. Stoked about this slate. But as I'm getting in here, hit that like button. Alex, we had the boss man filling in there for Lofty. Did a phenomenal job there. Adam Scherer, he's okay too, I suppose. Wins money all the time. So give them both the like button as we transition over. But of course, it's going to be me. It's going to be my buddy at G Ehrenberg DFS. His name's Greg Ehrenberg. Go follow him over at Twitter. And how you doing, my dude?
Yeah, it's doing pretty good. We've got, like you said, 5 games, a lot of injuries to break down also, which is something that, you know, we've had some of these shows as of late where a whole bunch of players get ruled out. We get different kind of wacky starting lineups as the shows go on. We've got LeBron James listed as questionable. I fully expect him to play. LeBron's going to be listed as questionable along with Joel Embiid basically every single game this year. DeAndre Ayton is listed as questionable. We also have Daniel Tice listed as questionable. Jayshawn Tate is questionable. So potential Rockets value. So there's going to be a lot to pay attention here, and you and I are going to break it down here.
Yeah, I thought Josh, you and Josh, I don't always get to check out all the shows, but on Live Before Locks, I'm not on. It's a pretty easy thing to be tuning in and listening. And you guys were all over McConnell. You absolutely smashed that value play. I know Josh absolutely smashed the Jared Allen call at 3-4% over on FanDuel. You guys were really on it. Hopefully we can give you some great information, some usable stuff for today's NBA slate. But as you said, we had a lot of news. For me, a lot of big news that we just got with Bam Adebayo, having him ruled in. I was already kind of anticipating for him to come back here. I don't really know what to make of Jimmy Butler now in this spot. We'll get to him. But as we always do on this show, we go position by position. And starting at the top of the guard position, you have to start the conversation with Cade Cunningham on DraftKings, where he's 3,600. We got word. So Rod Beard, he's one of the best beat writers that exists in the NBA. He's always so helpful to fantasy players. There aren't so many guys like him. So just big shout out to him for constantly always responding to questions. But whenever he tweets something out, I kind of take it as the law. And he said that Dwayne Casey was not aware of any minutes restriction that existed for Cade Cunningham. How does that change him as a play, considering he's 3,600, only 37.2%? I expect the number to be way higher as a result of this news. But what are you doing with him on this slate?
It's hard because, what do we know about NBA coaches? They're dirty, filthy liars.
Liars.
That's something that always makes it a little hard. So originally I was just like, all right, no restriction for Cade Cunningham. I put him in for 30 minutes. And that was the last thing I was doing before we started is I'm rerunning my lineups with the Cade Cunningham news. And then it's like, do I really want to trust Dwayne Casey entirely? I still think Cade Cunningham is the best overall points per dollar play on DraftKings. And I think the upside is immense, but if I'm assuming he plays 30 minutes, I'm getting him in all of my lineups, and I'm a little hesitant after what happened last game. We saw only minutes in the teens for Cade Cunningham, so he's still overall my favorite play on DraftKings. I'm going to be overweight to him, even on FanDuel at a more elevated price point of 5,000. I'm still going to be getting to a lot of Cade Cunningham, but I'm going to dial back on him being an all-in type play that I thought he might have been for me like 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, if we're going to compare him to Drummond last night, they're not the same play. I love Cade Cunningham as a result of this tag. I don't know what the minutes are going to look like. Right now, I have him for 26, and I think Awesemo has him for 27.5. So I think that's really in lockstep. He shot the ball terribly, too. 0 for 5 from 3, 1 for 8. So I think it muted some of his fantasy performance. I don't expect him to have 7 rebounds in the first 7 minutes of the game again. But at the same time, he's going to be somebody that I think is going to be around a fantasy point per minute player for this Detroit team going forward. I mean, that's basically... he's just short of that. I mean, he was like 0.8, 0.7 in that first outing, but it's gonna regress up there. There's nobody else there in Detroit that's gonna get as much meaningful DFS action as what Cade Cunningham is as he gets healthier. If he plays 26 minutes, what a smash that is. But he's gonna be popular, and just keep that in mind. All right, we can jump back up to the top end now here. I wanted to start with him. I thought it was a reasonable conversation piece. Even at 5K on FanDuel, I like exposure to Cade Cunningham in the event that he's going to be, 26, 28 minutes. That's a great spot to be. But Luka Doncic, Russell Westbrook, Donovan Mitchell, all kind of stick out as plays for spend ups here. I mean, Donovan Mitchell, 8,100 seems a little expensive, but Luka up there, Russell Westbrook. How do you kind of break down those two plays?
Yeah, so... With the Russell Westbrook one, I have him in my player pool, but it's not somebody I can get to a whole bunch of as long as we have LeBron James active. Are you on the same page as me? We just assume that that LeBron James questionable tag is kind of nonsense. It's just something that we should expect them to have the entire season.
Yeah, so that's what we had all of last season, and all it took was one actual injury for it to be something that they're allowed to do the rest of the season again. It's going to be annoying. It's going to be something that you have to factor in. I bet once in a while you get a surprise scratch and you would think, oh, well, they're playing Houston. They probably don't need LeBron to win in some of these spots. But coming off of that Oklahoma City loss, I just don't think LA wants to be losing some of these easy games early in the going. So I think LeBron James is probably a go. These questionable tags for him and Anthony Davis seem to just be honorary at this point. So I'm with you.
Yeah, so the reason being is, so if I thought that LeBron James was legitimately questionable today, then I'd really be trying to boost my exposure to Russell Westbrook, but I'm a little bit underweight to the field on him, and there are a bunch of mid-range point guards today that I really like, and starting over on the FanDuel slate, guys like Chris Paul is 7,800, De'Aaron Fox is 7,700. The matchup against the Utah Jazz isn't ideal, but eventually we're going to see some positive shooting regression from De'Aaron Fox, and I just don't think these guys project all that differently than Russell Westbrook. Luka, in terms of a pay-up option, that's going to be a little different. I know you roped him in there also, but I just wanted to start with Russell Westbrook because he was included in the group. And I just find that there's guys that are a little bit cheaper than Westbrook that I project similarly that prevent me from getting to him heavily.
Totally. I lump them together because they're the two highest priced guards that you can get up to over on DraftKings. You can play Luka Doncic, obviously, it's small forward as well, but I like getting to Luka. He's definitely the priority of the two. I know that this is kind of a lower total game than what you would want here. Getting Bam, Jimmy Butler on the floor, it's going to be a good Miami defense, good team going forward, but I don't really care. I think Luka Doncic, no Porzingis out there on the floor. I'm not worried about Maxi Kleber, even though we saw a ceiling performance from Maxi Kleber the other night. So him being out as well, I'm looking at Luka Doncic as a piece that I want to be well over that 15.8% number. I think with Cade Cunningham and a couple of Pelicans pieces that we'll get to here in a little bit on the bottom end here, I think that it's probably a little bit easier for me to get more Luka exposure. I like playing him more at small forward. You can do stuff in Cruncher to make sure that that's a spot you can crunch him out. If you're making 40, 50 lineups, it shouldn't be too hard to kind of specify exactly where you want him to go. However, there's some decent enough forward value that we'll get to as well. But let's make our way down the guard board.
I have a question to ask you on that.
Go ahead.
Is there a particular reason why you're trying to make it so Luka's a small forward and not a point guard?
It depends. So, I mean, for me, it comes down to Devonta Graham. It comes down to Nickeil Alexander-Walker, where you're playing him at point guard, shooting guard. It just kind of depends. For me, it comes down to looking at the entire position of small forward as a whole. And I don't want to do it with every lineup. So it's more of me just kind of looking at the small forward position. I don't want to be playing LeBron James at 10-2. Jimmy Butler, I think, is a drastically different play than what he was before. Not saying he can't still have a ceiling. He's done it plenty of times alongside Bam Adebayo, but the assist rate comes down. Bam Adebayo, definitely a more meaningful player on the floor. Then you run out of room. Brandon Ingram, Chris Middleton, it becomes kind of a punt position. And I'm looking at Harrison Barnes getting 14.5%. No thanks. Sadiq Bey getting 14.7%. No thanks. A lot of these mid plays at small forward just don't intrigue me. I'm finding myself punting to kind of the bottom end with some of these plays. Jordan Nwora specifically, God forbid we're back to this conversation, but I think that small forward is a better position for him to land in some of these lineups. And I think point guard, I have a couple of plays, whether it's Kevin Porter Jr., Devontae Graham, a lot of these guys that it's just easier for me to slide them over to small forward and more of them. If you're hand building out lineups, that's something you can do a little bit easier, but even on Cruncher, I'm crunching 10, 20 lineups at a time, putting them and grouping them, being able to rank them a little bit for like 20 max stuff and moving on with my day. So I think that that's kind of the simplest explanation from my end.
All right. Yeah. So for me, I mean, I just kind of put my projections in Fantasy Cruncher. I'll run the lineups. I'll make some tweaks, but I just never really consider like, oh, is this guy, am I playing him as a point guard or a small forward?
Mm-hmm. It's how you like the rest of the position. And I think there are guys, Pat Connaughton, somebody that if you want to take tournament flyers on, but Jordan Nwora really for me is the kind of deal there at small forward. And then you can also play him at a power forward. So Herbert Jones is a play that I'm going to talk about that I don't recommend. Ben Ross has a section every week for golf on Twitter where he says the guy that I'm playing that you necessarily shouldn't. I think Herbert Jones might be that for me on this slate, but we shall see. Former SEC Player of the Year, Herbert Jones. Got to put some respect on that name. But going down the rest of guard here.
You don't.
No, you really don't. I don't think he's a rookie. What are we going to do? He's like an old rookie too. I think he's like 23 years old, but Chris Paul on the top end, 25% ownership going his direction. George Hill, 24.5%. Devin Booker. Who are some of the guards that are popular you're getting to the most?
Yeah, so here's one thing that's kind of making me a little bit uncomfortable with this league, but I also think it's unavoidable. We have the Jazz playing at home against the Kings. We have the Suns playing at home against the Pelicans. We have the Lakers playing at home against the Houston Rockets. All three of those games have a fairly substantial amount of blowout risk, in my opinion. So I tried to make it so my exposure is a little more spread out than it normally would be, or else, somebody like Chris Paul over on FanDuel, I think that 7,600 price tag against New Orleans Pelicans is a ridiculously favorable salary. But when I'm just running my lineup, it's like, oh my God, I'm getting like 60% Chris Paul. I don't want to be that over leveraged to a potential blowout situation. Mm-hmm. So I am trying to be a little bit cautious from that perspective when you bring up somebody like Chris Paul. But I mean, just points per dollar, he is my favorite point guard play on the slate, at least over on FanDuel. But once again, the blowout situation is a little bit uneasy for me.
I get that. Totally get that. We got to also talk a lot of chat going back and forth on Jalen Brunson. He got announced in the Mavs starting lineup here right after our show started here, like 7 minutes ago here at 4,600. I'm waiting for some of our stuff to update. I think I was already kind of looking at him as somebody who was like viable for tournaments. This obviously, I think, brings up his minute ceiling, but playing alongside Luka for a bunch of his minutes, I would expect to cut down on some of his productivity. Does that news do anything for you?
Yeah, I think we could feel better about Brunson's minutes, and I'm going to really quickly pull up some of his numbers as a starter last year. But I mean, I'm not too concerned about the minutes alongside Luka because the risk when he's coming off the bench is just that the minutes aren't there. I still think he's going to get those same bench minutes. He's just going to get some additional minutes playing alongside Luka. Like, I still think those minutes are going to be staggered to some extent. And so going back, although actually looking at some of Brunson's minutes last year, it just strikes me that some of those starts are going to be games that Luka was out. So maybe that's a little bit misleading, but In general, he was a very successful starter last year, averaging somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 DraftKings points per game. So he's certainly underpriced. You have to play him in cash games. He's going to be one of my favorite tournament options as well. I'm curious to see where his ownership ends up lying. I'm going to refresh for that.
Yeah, 5,500 on DraftKings. I guess that makes him an intriguing tournament play here, but now I'm assuming people are they're going to start flooding that direction a little bit. He was already in play on FanDuel, 4,600. That tag is just way too good, and it was something that I was already kind of identifying being a little bit over on. We're gonna have to wait and see what that ownership spike is there, because it might be something where I went from being overweight to him and now might be looking to hit eject. We'll see what the NBA boom bust tool, which is one of the best features of being an Awesemo Plus member here, which right now, if you want to check out all our tools and content, it's only $29.95 for a weekly pass. And NBA Live before lock, using that promo code, it's 25% off for Awesemo Plus Platinum. We use this boom bust tool. We refer to it constantly as we're doing shows. Greg and I are constantly updating that here, giving you the most updated information. The guys behind the scenes, Alex Baker, Steve Buzzard, Eddie Lai, so many guys on the team that are helping you guys put together lineups every single day in NBA content, projections, ownership, everything happening behind the scenes. So much. Just wanted to shout them out at the beginning of the show here, because they do a lot of great work that helps us. But kind of waiting for the Jalen Brunson news to hit. DraftKings here, it looks like FanDuel might have updated here, but that ownership is going to start climbing even above the 27% it was at before. So thought he was a decent enough talking point here. The rest of the guard position, is there anybody you think that is just going completely unrecognized perhaps on this slate?
So let's see. We don't have an ownership. I think this is going to change pretty drastically once we get an ownership update, because we've not had one since before the show started. So I don't really know exactly what it's going to be for all of the recent news that we've gotten. But, there isn't that much, at least at the time we'd started. The chalk at the guard position was, you got Chris Paul at 25% owned over on DK, Cade Cunningham, 37.2%. You've got George Hill, 24.5%. Other than that, there's nobody currently projected for over 20% ownership. So let me go into this and see if there's anybody I really feel like warrants having a lot more than that. And not really on DraftKings. I mean, the guys I'm really getting to, it's Cade Cunningham, and I mean, that's the number one option for me. Then I'm a little spread out beyond that. Let's see, where is Grayson Allen, 19%? I think that's about fair. George Hill, like we said, 24.5%. At least the chalk all seems reasonable to me. Is there anybody that's picking up a lot of ownership right there on DK that you look at and you're like, oh, that shouldn't be the case?
Grayson Allen is just really owned at 4,800. And I think that there's some intriguing props, and we'll talk a little bit about Odd Shopper towards the end of the show. But Grayson Allen right now, 19.4% ownership in our original run here. I'm assuming Brunson starts absorbing some of that on DK. He was pretty unowned at 5,500. I bet he garners at least 10, 15% ownership there now, but only 7.6% optimal. That was something that really kind of caught my eye for him there. Josh Hart, I still like him enough there. He's small forward, power forward. So excuse me on that one. I think looking at the rest of the guard position, I think you can kind of find some really high upside. Guy like Kevin Porter, I love. So, I mean, that was kind of the discussion I was going to have. 6,200. Feel like he's going to be playing big minutes in a better spot. Russell Westbrook defense is a lot different than, I guess Avery Bradley's starting to get minutes, but Kevin Porter Jr., I think he's just bound to have one of these games where he gets really on top of that tag. I think because Devontae Graham is sitting there just for $100 more, looking like he's going to probably get some of the priority. But in the boom bust tool, I'm just seeing Kevin Porter Jr. every single slate popping to the top there, 26.9% of the time optimal, 18.7% ownership makes him one of my favorite guard plays of the entire slate.
Yep, I think that he's going to be very popular on FanDuel, where positionality is different. Also, price tag, he's only 5,900. Mm-hmm. Once again, my only real concern with going crazy heavy on somebody like Kevin Porter Jr. is what happens if the Lakers end up winning this game by 15, 20 points. What do the Rockets' minutes look like down the stretch? But once again, that's an issue we have with a lot of the games on the slate. It's a 5-game slate, and I think 3 of them are reasonably in that territory. So I'm on the same page with you with Kevin Porter in general. I think that he's somebody who warrants a little bit more ownership. I think Kyle Lowry on FanDuel at least should be a very chalky play. Yeah. And I get he's projected for 24% ownership. That's not enough in my opinion. 5,900 for Kyle Lowry. And maybe he's had a little bit of trouble from a fantasy standpoint integrating himself into this Miami Heat offense. But last game, still, it was a game that was a blowout. So only played 29 minutes. He ends up scoring 38 FanDuel points in that spot. More likely than not, I'll almost guarantee this, Kyle Lowry is going to be more expensive than 5,900 going forward. He's somebody who, for a lot of last year, was priced at, the mid 7K to 8K range. So just a crazy low price tag on Kyle Lowry that I think is going to go up. And I think that he should be somebody who's like 30 to 35% owned today.
Fade the chalk. I can read. There you go. Well done putting that in chat like that. Don't fade the chalk. Cade Cunningham's going to smash on DraftKings. Sold Dope 1234. Our guy always checking in. Thank you so much for the super chat. He said all in on McGee/Bobby tonight for Luka Giannis on FD. So he's playing Bobby Portis and JaVale McGee in order to get to Luka and Giannis. We haven't gotten to the center portion of the program, but I think we'll have some extensive talks about late swap. Just kind of ends up being what happens with Greg and I on shows. But any thoughts on that combination in order to get Luka and Giannis on FanDuel?
Yeah, the McGee one is really interesting because I just don't know what to make of the DeAndre Ayton situation where he's currently listed as questionable to play. The one good piece of news here is we do have a handful of later starting games. We've gotten also, it's a smaller slate, but we've got 2 early games at 7 and 7:30, but then there's the 9 o'clock game, the 10 o'clock game, the 10:30 game. At the very least, if DeAndre Ayton ends up getting ruled out, we could jam in McGee and then pay up for some of those Lakers guys also. But yeah, I mean, the thing with McGee is obviously if Ayton plays, McGee sucks as a play, and then you're kind of stuck with him in there. Do you have any kind of real read about whether Ayton's in or out? I have him in right now for what it's worth.
I got a friend that texted me because we were talking a lot about JaVale McGee. Hi, Thomas, if you're watching the show here. But either way, JaVale McGee, when is the last time do you think that he played 25 or more minutes in an NBA game?
Well, when's the last time he was playing a game where he was the only available center, though?
But over the course of 2 years, you would think that would kind of change and that they would, it just feels like there's always like a minutes cap on this guy. I'm not saying he can't go out there as a center in 23 minutes and just destroy this slate. He's 3,400 on DraftKings. I'm not saying that I don't have that apprehension. I'm just saying that I think he's somebody that I'm already always skewing my lineups to have late exposure. I'm assuming I'll be able to react to that news. But JaVale McGee, it's been a long, long time. I believe it was like 28 minutes. What was the exact number he had? I don't want to pull up my messages while we're on this. Otherwise, it's going to go berserk.
It was
2019 was the year. It was 28 minutes was the last time that he played 25 plus minutes in an NBA game. It was 2019. It was like November, I think is what the month was that he had said. So I'm just throwing it out there. It's not somebody that generally plays a ton of minutes as it is. And so I think that he's still going to get there in the event that he's going to be the only center out there. I mean, he's a 1.21 fantasy point per minute producer on DraftKings. You just put in 18 minutes for him and he's going to pop at 3,400, 16 minutes probably even. So he's definitely a very, very intriguing play, but it's not locked in. I'm going to just throw it out there because this is just kind of where my brain has been going about this entire situation. I would be very curious to see what Jalen Smith's minutes ended up being in the event that he didn't play against the Pelicans. You have JaVale who's going to be out there. Obviously, I think McGee would get the start there, but Frank Kaminsky is somebody that can get in there and kind of have some run here, but he hasn't played since the 23rd, and Jalen Smith has been popping into the rotation. He ended up playing 9 minutes against Cleveland. That game was actually pretty close, 28.8% usage. If you wanted to try to take a real dart on somebody that they might want to go to, I mean, JaVale out there makes it seem like you'd need to have him out there, but Jalen Smith, I'd be more inclined. Frank Kaminsky, I don't know if he would get any kind of run. So if we want to talk about like the lowest of low, this is a 5-game slate. So if you want to talk some deep darts, I'm not saying make him a part of your core plays, but at 3K, I'd be willing to take shots on both of them, maybe kind of more late slate plays, but we'll kind of see when that news comes out. I always say it that the timing of the news matters as much as the news itself. Everybody will flood to JaVale McGee. I don't think that will be a mystery, but just want to throw out a little bit of a pivot there.
Yeah, and so long story short, to answer his question, I don't know if he actually asked the question. I think it was. Yeah, it was more of a statement. Yeah. It was more of a statement. I think Bobby Portis is a strong GPP play. JaVale McGee is also a good GPP play, but I think going all in on JaVale McGee is a little bit too risky for me.
All right, we got 2 more super chats. Man, so many great super chats here today. Darren Anderson, what rules are you setting for Milwaukee players? Answer from me, none.
Yeah, it's none. I mean, I'm getting to a smattering of Milwaukee players, we'll call it, but the only player I'm getting to a ton of is Giannis. And then I've got guys, Bobby Portis, Jordan Nwora, Grayson Allen, George Hill. These are guys that I'm getting to in like 15 to 20% of my lineups. But just because of the nature, I don't have any of these guys projected, crazy high. Thanasis more so on DraftKings than FanDuel also. But just because I don't think any of these guys are crazy good plays outside of Giannis, I think they're worth getting to. But I'm just not in Fantasy Cruncher. It's not spitting out lineups where I have like 4 or 5 Milwaukee players. So it's not a real concern for me.
Yep, it's not for me either. I usually am going to be capping at 3 for every single team, unless you're going to like game stack something or there's a crazy amount of value. I thought Milwaukee was going to be very intriguing. Then you get Brandon Ingram changed to doubtful. He's not going to play more than likely here. So just building lineups without him in there makes it pretty simple for me to not have any kind of a rule where I'm concerned about getting to too much Milwaukee in any given lineup. It's going to naturally happen. And then Brad Kaufman, is Cunningham lock button? He's not lock button for me, but I'm getting to a lot of him. How about you, Greg?
No, he's not for me. And like I said before, if you weren't listening at the top, he was for me when I first ran my lineups, just based on the idea that Cade Cunningham is not going to be restricted. But I dialed that back just because, like I was saying before, with Dwayne Casey, coaches are dirty, filthy liars, more so Doc Rivers than anybody. But I just don't trust his word enough for me to actually believe Cade Cunningham plays 30 plus minutes. If it is the case, then yeah, I want him to be a lock button. He is my most rostered player today. He is my highest owned, but I don't have him in 100% of my lineups. I have him in 56% right now.
All right. 56%. That sounds like a good number. I had 60% my last run. I had a cap of 60%. So I guess that would make sense. All right. Anything else for you from the guard position as we're looking at it? We've got George Hill. We talked a lot about Milwaukee. Yeah, if you need a player at 3,800, he makes some sense, but I might be waiting for a little bit of value here later. I'm also maybe a little bit higher on some of the Pelicans value than other people might be. We're looking at on the bottom end, like Kira Lewis Jr. doesn't sound appealing to anybody whatsoever. I've assumed Devontae Graham, Nickeil Alexander-Walker are going to get a lot of the attention, but he's 3,100. I mean, just an absolute pure punt to get to Luka and Giannis in lineups, stuff like that. That's kind of mixing into my 150, but nothing drastic here. Anything else for the guard position for you?
I mean, we could talk about all those Bucks guys. Is there any of them that you've really disliked relative to their ownership? Because like I said, I have a lot of these guys I'm just getting to 15, 20% of. And I mean, just the usage has to go somewhere other than Giannis, right? Is Giannis just going to have a 60% usage rate? Everybody's out for this team. There's no Chris Middleton. There's no Drew Holiday. There's no Brook Lopez. So obviously we're going to have to see Giannis play a massive role. But unless he's going to do everything for this team, there's other guys to look at. I just don't know who it's going to be. So is there anybody in particular you're looking at as being the guy for Milwaukee, or anybody you're looking at that you don't want a part of?
So I want a lot of Thanasis. I want a lot of Grayson Allen. Or not Grayson Allen, sorry, Jordan Nwora. Grayson Allen and George Hill freak the crap out of me right now. The ownership isn't nearly as high on either of them as kind of what I was expecting it to be coming into this slate. So 25% and 20%, part of that is there is some later value that may emerge. Again, keeping that swappability open. If you have to play punt Pelicans as a result, you can kind of be okay getting stuck there. And it doesn't feel like a crazy opportunity cost giving it up here. But I mean, for me, Pat Connaughton's 4,600. I don't really want to be dealing with that too much on DK. Grayson Allen, 4,800. The price, I mean, he'd really have to still go off in this spot. And, 31 minutes of him, he certainly could do it here. 0.84 fantasy points per minute isn't anything enthralling. It just becomes so absorbed by Giannis, by hopefully Jordan Nwora, who's been a good fantasy point producer, in summer league and in other times in his career when he's seen some limited run. But God, it is really, really bleak to get any kind of a feel for anything else with this team. You go over to WoW and you try to make any sense of anything. It's so hard to find situations where it's just Giannis, no Middleton, no Drew Holiday. It's kind of an entire unknown. So you could make a case for a lot of guys. I think just kind of scattershotting at the board. I just don't have a strong stand anywhere. I wish I could tell you more about what I wanted to do. I think it's just going to be getting to around the field a little bit under on most of these guys and moving on with my slate. How about you?
Yeah, so I mean, I've got the on-off court numbers for the Milwaukee Bucks this year in front of me, and once again, you're dealing with small sample sizes, but I kind of think we have to be beholden to them when you're looking at some of these teams with such crazy injury situations and no data to go on from last year, because we just didn't have some of these guys on Milwaukee last season, and Dante DiVincenzo would have played a big role on this team had it been the same situation last year. But at least this year, we've got Grayson Allen, 1.1 DraftKings points per minute when we take Middleton, Drew Holiday, and Lopez off the court. Thanasis, 0.95. George Hill, 0.81. Pat Connaughton, 0.75. Noora, 0.69. Most of these guys are garbage fantasy producers with all these guys off the court, with the exception of Grayson Allen's produced well this year. Bobby Portis is always going to be a pretty good fantasy producer. Thanasis is surprisingly produced well. I just don't know exactly how many minutes he's going to play. But that means if I have to pick two of them as the best value plays, it's going to be Grayson Allen and Thanasis for me.
Okay. Grayson Allen's fine. Thanasis is my priority. Noora as well. Oh man, I'm going to go down with the Noora train. I'm just going to chase it until it happens. And then I'll move on with my life. And if it never happens, you're going to see one miserable Eric on these streams for the rest of my life here. But that's going to do the guard position. We'll fly through the forward position here. We still have half an hour to go. We have Jock Market coming up here afterwards. We're going to do a 30-minute show. We're not going anywhere as soon as we get done. We're going to be talking fantasy sports that Jock Market has changed into the stock exchange. You can make money every single minute, second, hour. It doesn't matter. As the games are going on, you're going to be able to buy and sell shares of players in real time for real money. Use the promo code Awesemo, AWESEMO, for a $50 bonus on your first deposit. You download the app. You head over to the Apple Store. You head to Google Play. You do whatever you need to do to find the app, and you download it. They have NFL, MLB, NHL, NBA, PGA, every sport, every major sport that you could possibly want is available on Jock Market. There's a pre-game IPO phase that you basically are going to be drafting the players ahead of time. You're going to get a little bit better value on them than buying and selling during, because, people are going to obviously take their shares and try to lock in a profit a little bit at the beginning. But as games are going on, you're able to react to things in the moment. If somebody gets 2 quick fouls, you can sell your shares or buy shares of the backup in real time. That makes it so nuanced, really fun to play. And they have a first market guarantee going right now, where if a new user doesn't profit with their first NFL cash market, they are refunded up to $100. That's a free roll. They are giving you the opportunity to try out their product, which is really, really fun. So check it out. And we have free Jock Market IPO projections right now. They help you beat the market. Nothing better than being able to find sites that are putting money into your pocket initially. And we have the tools and data to help you back it up. So thank you so much to Jock Market for their sponsorship. Very excited to be talking about them at the end of our program. All right, let's jump over to forward here on the top end. It starts with Giannis Antetokounmpo. How much Giannis is too much Giannis on the sites for you today?
I think he's pretty clearly the best pay-up option on the slate. And it's, once again, just because we talked about that Milwaukee situation with all these guys being out, Giannis this year, when you take Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez off the court, he's scoring 1.68 DraftKings points per minute. Then you also have to consider he's going to have to play a lot of minutes, even though this is a matchup against a terrible Pistons team. It's not like the players around Giannis are that much better than what he's going up against over on the Pistons team. In fact, I think you can make a case that without Giannis, the Pistons are a far better team than what the Bucks are throwing out right now. And you consider that the Pistons have guys like, Jeremy Grant, Sadiq Bey, Kate Cunningham, because I think he's going to be good. So it's just such a barren roster that the Bucks are throwing out there that I just find it by necessity, I have to get to a lot of Giannis. He is just by a mile the best pay-up option today.
I'm chasing Noora. We're all chasing Noora. That's just kind of the way that it is. Also, the way I say fouls, do I say fouls strangely?
Yeah, you're saying it like it's the bird.
Yeah, but it's a fouls. It's a foul.
It's a foul. Foul.
Yeah, foul.
Yeah, you're saying like there's a W and 3 L's in it.
What am I doing wrong? I don't understand.
Everything.
I'm hearing it. I can see the lips moving, but I can't understand the words.
You're
foul.
saying like this. Yeah, you're saying foul.
Foul.
Yeah.
Like a foul ball. It's the same thing. What are we... Okay, I must just be an insane person. I can't hear anything that I'm doing wrong. Let me know in the chat if I'm just, disturbed and I can't enunciate. There's a lot of other things that are wrong about me. Like, yes, if you get a late swap from me, it's going to be problematic because I am an animated person who likes to win money. And generally, when late news goes against me, I'm upset. And when Mr. Bigglesworth gets upset, people die. That's basically it. All right, continuing with the rest of the forward position on the top end, Jimmy Butler changes drastically for me as a play, getting Bam Adebayo in there. I'm just not nearly as interested, especially at his tag, which has just continued to climb, now up to 9,100. He opened the season right around 8,300, and it has continued to climb here on DraftKings. Of course, it was a blowout that kind of refrained from him having a super ceiling performance. 30 minutes against Memphis, still put up nearly 50 DraftKings points. But do you have any interest in paying up for him or pivoting to him with Giannis on the top end?
So you said Bam. Who did you say?
Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler. With Bam
Jimmy Butler. Okay, I kind of got mixed up when you said.
Oh, you're okay. I apparently can't enunciate or pronounce anything, so you're
no, it's
okay.
It's all good. So Jimmy Butler at 9,100. So I do really like Bam Adebayo today on both FanDuel and DraftKings. Jimmy Butler, I'm finding a little bit more difficult to get to, like you said, just because of the price point. He is 9,100 on DK. He's up to 10,000 on FanDuel. There are a bunch of guys that are pay up options that I just think are more favorable to get to. And somebody like LeBron James, for instance, he is not going to be a popular play. He is cheaper than Jimmy Butler on both FanDuel and DraftKings. I think that he's a better pay up option than Butler. So to me, I don't really like Butler as a pay up option. As a pivot off Giannis, he's a little bit too expensive for me.
How about either of the Lakers, assuming that we get news where LeBron James is going to be playing, and that's kind of what I'm assuming. Any Anthony Davis interest in 9,700 just to kind of round out the top spend ups on DraftKings and FanDuel at forward?
A minimal amount. Once again, nothing really too substantial. We've seen Anthony Davis's production take a little bit of a step back. I'm not exactly sure still what to make of the trio of LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Russell Westbrook. I think since it's a small slate with 5 games, all 3 of them are viable to some extent. My favorite GPP option of the 3 is actually LeBron for today. But I'm not going crazy with any of them still, because I think we're going to have to see these 3 stars really cut into each other's usage and production. We just consider that all of them been in situations where they've been able to take up so much of the usage in the past. They've never really been in situations where there's this many guys to share the ball with. Even when LeBron was in Cleveland with Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love really took a step back in terms of usage. I don't know that's going to happen this year when it comes to Anthony Davis and Russell Westbrook. So I think as GPP plays, I think they're worth small amounts of exposure to, but nothing I'm really going to go crazy with. And then in particular on FanDuel, the one thing that at least gets me overweight to the field on LeBron is that he's projected for sub 10% ownership. So it's not a difficult number to be over the top of.
All right, that makes sense. I mean, anybody that has a ceiling like LeBron can under 10% makes sense, especially on a 5-game slate, probably more sense than a 10, 11 gamer for sure. But some of the more popular plays here, we've got Grayson Allen up there. Josh Hart is kind of a value piece as well. Jimmy Butler was 16.9% there. Mikal Bridges, that's a surprising one to see at 5,200 here for him. Decent enough. I mean, he's going to play 30 minutes, like in that ballpark. 33 minutes is what we have him projected for against the Pellies here. What are you doing with some of these more popular forwards that seem to be kind of these mid punts at 4,800 to like 5,200 on DK?
Yeah, so the ones over on DK, I think that if we're going really cheap dumpster diving, we've already brought them up a couple of times, but I think Thanasis is the one that makes the most sense. And also, I'm going to refresh to see if we do have an ownership update since the last time.
Yeah, I just got it. Yep.
So let me just scroll through this and see where some of these players lie at forward. Let's see. So Josh Hart, 17%. That's right around where I have him. I have him at 23% in my build right now. Other forwards that are picking up ownership on DK, Bobby Portis, that is sensible. Yeah, I mean, which particular popular forwards are you referring to? Because I don't see anybody that's standing out as being that popular in this price range.
Yeah, there's nobody. I'm just saying that they're all basically, if you just look at forward, if you're grouping it on Fantasy Cruncher and you look at the top end, it goes Giannis, Thanasis, Grayson Allen, Anthony Davis, Josh Hart. And then we start getting into this Josh Hart discussion. And, you know, he's a great rebounding guard. He's listed small forward, power forward. I guess that's kind of more of where he's at. But for all intents and purposes, he's a shooting guard. So, I mean, maybe not on the floor in this spot. He'll probably play more of the 3, but positionless basketball, 4,900. I get why people are getting there. Maybe having exposure to more of him gives you the ability to swap on in your utility spot to some JaVale McGee, or if Anthony Davis were to get ruled out, you can kind of make some decisions on what needs to happen there. Because again, I don't predict the future. I just react to it. And so we're kind of like going to this Bobby Portis here as well, 4,400. I think he's kind of the talking point. We kind of skipped over him a little bit with Milwaukee. I'm just not going to be getting there a whole heck of a lot. I don't know what those minutes are going to look like, and I was already expecting him to maybe be a little bit more popular. Like how Bridges 5,200 just isn't that intriguing to me. For me, you just can play the extremes. Go to Giannis, go to Thanasis. I know they're a little bit more popular, but I just think you're just elevating your floor so much with those two plays. I mean, Thanasis with 27.75 minutes projection, right around a 0.8 fantasy point per minute producer. A lot of my lineups are just going to be those two. And then I can get different around there. And I've got some plays, whether it's, other guys with the Pelicans, Kira Lewis Jr. is a piece of value, or, obviously Cade Cunningham is going to be a big part of all of our lineups here. And we just got that starting lineup here from the Pellies as I'm talking. Amazing. George Hill, Grayson Allen, Pat Connaughton, Thanasis, and Giannis. So no surprises that Giannis continuing to play the 5. So I just think it's such locked in value with Thanasis. I'd much rather just play way overweight him and get different around him. So I'm siding more with you, right?
I believe I like Bobby Portis more than you, but other than that,
okay, you do. Okay,
yeah, just to rehash the numbers I brought up before, is it Bobby Portis is still over fantasy point per minute producer when you're taking Brook Lopez, Drew Holiday, and Chris Middleton off the court. And we haven't seen the minutes for Bobby Portis quite get up to that extent yet, but it wouldn't shock me if Bobby Portis comes in and plays well. He could very easily soak up the center minutes, play 26, 28 minutes. And I think of all the players on the Bucks, he is the second highest ceiling behind Giannis. Is that reasonable?
Say that one more time. I got distracted by chat because I'm a terrible host.
Who would you say I think that Bobby Portis has the second highest upside of anybody on the Bucks today. Would you agree with that? If not, who do you think does have the second most upside?
Jordan Nwora.
No, it's Bobby
Jordan
Portis.
Nwora.
Nah, it's Bobby
Jordan
Portis.
Nwora.
Jordan Nwora, who do you know why it's not Jordan Nwora?
Why?
And brother,
sucks.
That is the main reason. But also, I mean, you just look at once again the fantasy. Here's the fantasy production for Jordan Nwora this year.
Don't read it.
In 95.6 minutes for Jordan Nwora with no Drew Holiday, no Chris Middleton, no Brook Lopez on the floor. Jordan Nwora has an 18.6% usage rate, and he scores 0.69 fantasy points per 36 minutes. He's 0.69 fantasy points per minute. Bobby Portis is just a really good fantasy producer. Jordan Nwora isn't. So Nwora, whatever. He's in 15% of my lineup. So there's just he's one of the guys for me. He's not a priority.
A lot more of mine. Don't do this to me. I don't want to play Bobby Portis at minimal minutes when Jordan Nwora, if he actually makes a shot. Can you make a shot, dude? How would you make a shot? 0 for 2, 0 for 3 from 3, or 0 for 5 in his last game from 3 as well. Not really putting up the ancillary stats. I expect him to be better than this going forward. I just do. I've seen it too many times why are we getting news about D'Angelo Russell? Who cares about Wednesday? But yeah, no, I'm absolutely looking.
He's on a lot of my best ball teams. We care about D'Angelo Russell.
Okay, well, I'm a Timberwolves fan and I still don't care about D'Angelo Russell. That probably speaks a lot to me and the problems I have. I'm a scoring Minnesota fan, but yeah, I think that Jordan Nwora, I'm happy to be going a little bit more with him. I think Bobby Portis does make a little bit of sense. You talk about, we saw what he did in the playoffs. We've seen him in every pit and every destination, whether it was Chicago, whether it was, anywhere that he's played around the entire league. If he gets minutes, he can perform on a fantasy point per minute basis. So I get that. He has upside at that tag. I'll probably get a little bit of him here now. I just wasn't super enthusiastic to be clicking on his, but I'm chasing Jordan Nwora. It's going to happen. It's just somebody that I believe in, and I refuse to be wrong about this guy. I refuse to be wrong.
He might force you to be.
Yeah, well, there's that. I'm poorer because of him. I can tell you that. Going to the rest of the position here, kind of rounding everything out. Is there somebody that's really not gaining any attention that you might be willing to take shots on? Because I think I had alluded to Herbert Jones being my guy on the bottom end.
I actually do like Herbert Jones with you, and much like our friend Jordan Nwora, I also think Herbert Jones sucks, but he's cheaper today, which plays in his favor. And I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to argue with somebody who's that cheap and has potential to play a lot of minutes. The Pelicans injury situation right now, we knew that Zion's out and he's going to be out, but now we've got Brandon Ingram is out as well. There's a whole lot of usage and playing time that's available there. And Herbert Jones played a lot of it last game. And even if this game's a blowout against the Suns, I think there's a pretty good chance that Jones ends up playing in garbage time. So last game, he played 36 minutes against the Knicks. That's a massive amount of playing time upside for a guy who's this cheap. And is he going to be a good points per minute fantasy producer this year? Almost certainly not. I think that's really unlikely. In fact, this year, he's playing 25 minutes per game and averaging 14 DraftKings points in those minutes. But even you take those minutes, if you say you're going to give him 36 minutes, you're still looking at, a little bit over 20 fantasy points, which you could do worse for its price tag. And then once again, there's additional usage with Brandon Ingram out. So I'm on the same page with you as Herbert Jones. I absolutely think he sucks, but give me the minutes and opportunity.
So, I mean, he played at Alabama and he was really good at filling up a box score. He's somebody that I expect to start getting a lot of defensive stats too. In college, his final season, 1.7 steals, 1.1 blocks per game. Only 11.2 points. I'm not seeing him being like a crazy high usage guy, but it hasn't been non-existent so far for him. As a rookie, I'm willing to give guys a little bit more leash to kind of find their own offensively, especially. And if they do at any point, you want to be early to the game. And so I'm going to be firing up a lot of Herbert Jones today, well over the field on DraftKings, where I think it's a little bit more advantageous to be going his direction. But I really do like him. I mean, his number, what did he finalize over on FanDuel as well? Because he was sitting at a weird spot. He's power forward only. That makes it a little bit tougher for me at 4K, but DraftKings especially, I'm firing up a lot. I'm glad that you second that call. Is there anybody else that you're seeing that's going a little bit underrepresented at forward?
I feel like we've kind of hit on everybody at this point. You know, there's a lot of guys that I'm just getting to, 15-ish% of my lineups, and it's not like there's any guys I'm looking at with, I actually have 30% of Herbert Jones. I don't feel great about it though, but there aren't guys that I look at as being cheap and being like, I really want to jam them in. Although there is somebody we're about to talk about at that center that I feel differently about on the cheap end.
Okay, man, chat is spicy. I'm a talk of conversation around the town. It's nice. I think it's overall positive. Well, no, it's not. No, it's positive. Let's be serious. It's a desolate place of sadness and broken dreams, and I don't want to go in there too much. But I dip my toes in from time to time. This guy, he did say, "My ma, love the show." That's an easy way to get my attention. He said, "Thoughts on Frankie Ntilikina at 2% on DK?" I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, he's not in my player pool. There's a lot of, but Ntilikina had excellent opportunities to produce fantasy points in New York. There was games where he was min price, he was starting, the entire Knicks lineup is out, and he'd go out and he'd score like 3 fantasy points. So I've exited the Frank Ntilikina train quite a long time ago.
Frankie smokes your lineup. That's basically what it is. All righty, let's talk for 1 second here. We've got Odd Shopper. It's a little Odd Shopper time. I think we need to head over. And if you haven't had a chance to check out all of the new features we have at Odd Shopper right now, we've got a number of ways that you can shop for props to make it a little bit more efficient for you as you're making your lineups. I know that there's 14 minutes left, but if you're in a state where there's legalized sports betting, there's no better time than now, especially if you're an Awesemo Plus member. But everything at Odd Shopper is completely free to you right now. You're able to go in there for NFL, NBA. Those are the 2 ones that they have for the shop feature going right now, where you're able to kind of look and sort by expected ROI, expected win percentage, all of the best tools in the industry provided by guys like Steve Buzzard, Alex Baker, Eddie Lai, everybody behind the scenes, putting it together to help you find the best plays possible. I'm looking at a number of these on the top end. You can kind of see if you sort it by expected ROI, guys like Frank Jackson coming in under on his rebounds, 98% ROI, 83% expected win percentage. Stuff like that is going to be just profitable long-term. So take advantage of it. One of them that I had identified, I love Christian Wood in DFS tonight. I think that he's somebody that we'll get to here next at the center position. And over on his rebounds right now, you can see where the sportsbook is that they are best listed, 51% expected ROI and 82% expected win percentage. I think that stuff like that is going to be very, very profitable for you long-term. I love that bet. I think you should take advantage of that right now. And using these tools, it's so easy to do. Greg, what is your favorite prop that exists on Odd Shopper to take advantage of today?
All right, well, let me run over there to see what odds have changed since we started, because there's a very good chance that the ones that I was looking at this morning are not the same ones that exist now, and probably the ones that exist now might not even be ones that existed 15 minutes ago. So I'm going to head over to Odd Shopper, like you said, also just sort by the way, if people aren't aware of how to just direct it on the page, if you go to Awesemo.com, top right, there's Odd Shopper. Then from Odd Shopper, you click on Shop NBA. And then there is a tab on the top right of the page where you could sort expected ROI by largest to smallest. And if anybody wasn't sure exactly how to navigate the page, that is the best way to do it. Let's see, which of these numbers are ones that... Okay, so this is going to seem like a really high number, but it is something I actually bet on this morning. It hasn't changed. Rudy Gobert over under 14.5 rebounds. I like the over there at plus money. And while that seems like a ridiculously high number for Rudy Gobert, I'm projected for nearly like 17 rebounds today. It's a game against the Sacramento Kings. And number one has the highest total on the slate at 22.5. Rudy Gobert also this year has just been just crazy rebound monster. And we've seen something this year where the offensive ratings are way down this year. And it's because there's less free throws. There's less fouls. There's less free throws being attempted. As a result, there's way more missed shots and more potential for rebounds. So Rudy Gobert this year, he has had 15 plus rebounds in all but 2 of the Jazz games. So he has had more games with 20 rebounds, the same amount of games with over 20 rebounds that he's had with under 16. So 14.5 seems like a big number, but it makes sense to me. And it's something that also pops up as a good bet on OddsShopper.
I love that call. And it's a perfect segue. You brought up a center. I brought up a center. Let's talk some center at the position on DraftKings. Of course, you can play Giannis. You can play Anthony Davis on the top end. Lots of expensive centers that are available there. But Jonas Valanciunas is the first guy that really pops up for me. 8,500. I have a lot of Jonas Valanciunas. I think he just is somebody that if he plays these 33 to 35 minutes here a night going forward, 1.25 DraftKings points per minute, and it's just going to be a smash. He's just somebody that projects out well for me, and I've been well over the field pretty much every single slate. He started to get things adjusted. 8,600, though, on FanDuel still is too cheap for me. How do you feel about him as a play today?
I'm not getting to a ton of him. He's in my player pool,
Okay.
but I'm just the guy who we just talked about. I really like Rudy Gobert today on both FanDuel and
Okay.
DraftKings. For the same thing, if I project for that many rebounds, it stands to reason I really like him for fantasy purposes. So I'd rather play Rudy Gobert, who's cheaper on FanDuel. Also on FanDuel, you get the benefit of the defensive stats and the extra point for the block bonus. So Valanciunas actually 8,600 on FanDuel is probably my least favorite center play, to be honest.
Okay. Well, that's fair. I mean, for me, I'm just riding the Joe Val train. And then Bam Adebayo, 8,500 for him to be a point away there, projecting about the same here. I like the center position a lot. I'm playing a lot at 2 center on DraftKings. I think it makes a lot of sense. They're a little bit undervalued. You're getting some really, really high upside when the likes of Bam Adebayo. I do like Rudy Gobert, Christian Wood. I'm well over the field now that tag has started to level out a little bit. 8,600 down to 8,500 now, sub 8K. I think there's a big game that's going to be in store for him very, very soon. He's actually projecting out better than everybody that's sitting underneath 8K by a substantial margin at center on FanDuel. So I'm definitely going to be there on him. I like the Rudy Gobert call, though, as well. I think I'm just going to be getting to a number of all of these guys and spreading it around. You can play Christian Wood at power forward. You can play Bam at a bio at a power forward on FanDuel. So I think that makes it a little bit easier than DraftKings. But what are you going to be doing with this Ayton news? That's kind of the last piece of it. I think we've kind of confirmed less on JVL. You're definitely there on Gobert. I guess Bam Adebayo, let's talk about him quick. Do you have any interest in going his direction now that he got ruled in?
Yeah, I think the more so on DraftKings than FanDuel. FanDuel, the 8,500 price tag is, about fair to me, but he's considerably cheaper over on DK, where he's only priced at 7,500. And, looking at some of the production that we've gotten from him this year, like last game against the Charlotte Hornets. And we haven't seen the Heat in that many competitive games this year because they've really just been smashing teams. But even last game against the Hornets, one of the rare competitive games that Miami played 36 minutes for Bam Adebayo. He ended up scoring 57.75 DraftKings points in that game. I think the reason that they held Bam out last game, I don't think it was as much that he was hurt as much as it was like, hey, I don't know that we need Bam. We have Dwayne Dedmon as a backup center. And I think that they were fine with just giving Adebayo the day off after he played 36 minutes. So that's really what I think more about with him sitting last game. I'm not too concerned about the injury. So once again, I think he replicates the minutes he got last game, and he's pretty underpriced on DK.
I like that. Then we've got these punts here. DeAndre Ayton, if he ends up being out, I mean, how would you just be trying to get to every share of JVL that you possibly could?
Jonas Valanciunas?
Sorry, of JaVale McGee. I was thinking JVal, Jovel. I was just moving my lineups over and putting a cap, and that did not go well for my brain. And I had just got a compliment from Butto Jenkins saying that I was making so much sense lately. And then I just egregiously say that. So no more sense being made. Now you can make fun of me, Butto. You're your favorite, and you are especially good at it, and you're allowed to.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if I like the phrase, man. Make fun of me, butthole. There's something. I don't know. There's something off about that entire
It
sentence.
is what it is. You're just saying a name, Greg. It's just a name.
It is just a name to some.
What's in a name?
So here's what I'm doing with the Ayton JaVale McGee news. I don't know. I really do not know whether we're going to see Ayton play or not. I think it's a true 50-50 call. I have him in about 15% of my lineups right now. I also have JaVale McGee in about 15% of my lineups. I want to give myself the flexibility to be able to swap given whatever news happens there. But the other thing to consider too, if Ayton ends up playing, he has a relatively cheap price point and nobody's going to roster him today. So I also think that Ayton is a pretty good GPP play if he ends up being ruled in. So I think it's something you want placeholders of both and then just be prepared to make swaps once that news comes out. Hopefully, not before too long, but I think that there's going to be two under-owned options regardless of what the news is.
I think that's very sharp. I talked about Jalen Smith for a hot second as well. Somebody that if you want to have in the pool just randomly, there's got to be somebody who plays the backup minutes. JaVale McGee is going to be splitting center minutes with somebody. I don't see Mikal Bridges playing a 5. I don't see anybody like that. It's going to be Frank Kaminsky. It's going to be Jalen Smith. Those are kind of your two candidates there. I would be willing to kind of take shots depending on how my lineups are doing. You're able to kind of react to that as well. If they're just completely crap, I'm not going to play JaVale. I'm going to find ways to play the other guys. If my lineups are doing fantastic and JaVale ends up being starting JaVale McGee for everybody there, as I'm saying that through. Jeez. Again, I'm so paranoid now of this foul thing that I can't even think straight. It's pretty crazy that my entire life is a lie now. Speaking about NBA coaches lying, now my life is a lie, but I definitely like both sides of that as well. I think Ayton would be a good tournament play, but center is so stacked that I don't even think you necessarily have to go nuts with it. I'm just going to maybe have a share or two kind of sprinkled amongst everything else. But everybody, it's 5 minutes left. Hit that like button. Get your lineups in. Now is the time to start doing that. I'm doing it as well. Greg's going to be doing it here as we kind of round out talking about this entire slate. Anything else from the center position for you?
Yeah, we didn't talk about my favorite play at center yet, and that's Dwight Powell. More so on DraftKings than FanDuel because he's a little bit easier to fit into lineups when he has the number one, just cheaper price tag. He's 4,000 on DK compared to 4,800 on FanDuel, but then also we have the utility spots play with on DK. But I mean, look at the big man minutes for the Dallas Mavericks today. Who is going to play them outside of Dwight Powell? Like, are they going to give Moses Brown big minutes? I mean, we haven't seen it so far this year. Are they going to play Willie Cauley-Stein extended minutes? Maybe to some extent, but we've got Maxi Kleber is out now in addition to Kristaps Porzingis, and Kleber is going to be out for a little while. He's dealing with an oblique injury. So I think we could potentially see north of 30 minutes from Dwight Powell in this spot. I think they're going to need his size to match up against Bam Adebayo. So as long as he avoids foul trouble, we got 33 minutes out of him last game against the Kings. I think this is another spot where we could see something similar. So just because of the price point, I think Dwight Powell is a really good value play that is not picking up enough ownership.
Love that call. I have right a little bit above the field on both sites on Dwight Powell, right around 28% on FanDuel. Let me refresh ownership one more time as I'm starting to get all this. And yeah, he's right around 21% there on FanDuel. I think that that's a great play. Another guy that you can play a power forward as well. I think that those kind of guys where you have the multi-positional eligibility now on FanDuel, they show up in a couple more lineups. But also I think that because of how much I do like some of these centers that are center only, Rudy Gobert, JaVale, those guys specifically, I think being able to have another guy like Powell there who's cheap, who I'm able to play a power forward makes a lot of sense. That's kind of why I'm not getting Danny Herbert Jones over there. Definitely more of a DK specific play for me there. But I love that call for you. We talked about the center situation there. JaVale McGee becomes such an amazing play in the event that you get no Ayton a good tournament shot, 2.3% for him. I think that kind of covers everything we have from the center position. Greg, get your lineups in, but is there anything you're noticing from your final runs here before we get to lock and jump over to Jock Market?
No, my lineups are all uploaded. Once again, this is a slate where I'm a little more spread out than I normally would be. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Cade Cunningham, I think those are pretty clearly the two top plays on the slate. Dwight Powell's actually the player I'm getting the third most exposure to. And then, other than that, I just hope I hit on the right combination of players because I don't have too many guys that have more than like 25% exposure to.
Oh yeah. I would say I'm a little bit different. I'm pretty concentrated on a couple of these guys, but I'm going to have plenty of time to late swap once we get done with the show. Once we get ourselves over to Jock Market, I'm going to take one peek over to the premium Discord just to see if there's anything that's popped up that I might be missing there. Because again, that's where we're able to get some of these questions. Doesn't look like we have any questions there. We're kind of running short on time as it is, but I'm hoping you guys are all getting your lineups in here as we are running down 1 minute to lock here. I'm finishing up everything last second per usual.
Did get a question here from, I've been answering. There were some questions in the Discord channel that I've been answering as we've gone along, just typing them in. But Devin in our premium Discord channel, I'm kind of confused how this question comes up, but he's saying Bam Adebayo or Donovan Mitchell on FanDuel. So, I mean, that's kind of a weird comparison just because they play different positions and there's no utility spot on FanDuel, but I have more exposure to Bam Adebayo on FanDuel.
Okay. Yeah. Bam Adebayo is a really, really good play there. Let's see. I've got, Steve Bernini says he listens to the Slate starter every morning on his way to work. I appreciate that very much. Ryan and I, Rin Pack, for those who don't know, extremely good at NBA DFS, like top 10 in the world at such things. You should be listening to him every single morning alongside me because that's fun. Even if you find me cringe, you will not find Rin Pack cringe. You know why? Because he makes a ton of money at this. I just steal all of his ideas and use them for myself, or, just make fun of stuff when it goes wrong. But it's always a lighthearted, fun discussion to get your slate going. Hope you guys are enjoying that. So appreciate that a lot. And we are at lock. It is Jock Market time. As you can see over here, Jock Market on the TV over here. The look I just got from Jordan Klein was, you didn't like that at all, did you? No, you really hated that. Jordan Klein is not my fan today. What did I do? Jordan Klein, we hung out last weekend. You hate me now? What's going on? What do I need to do to make this better? I'm good? Oh yeah, no. He said I'm good with like a cringe, like mad face at me. Yeah. Be upset. But something I'm not upset is being able to talk a little bit about Jock Market with you. We had talked earlier. It is one of the best spots that you're going to ever find to make money right from the get-go with that promo code Awesemo, because it's $100. You're getting $100 that is getting put into your pocket as you're getting going, up to $100 for the NFL. So if you play NFL, they will refund up to $100 of your very first NFL market that you play. Stuff like that is just invaluable. Use the promo code Awesemo for a 100% match. Up to $50 is the number that we have for promo code Awesemo right now. But let's start going through the slate because we have a fair value sitting there of Giannis Antetokounmpo, $17. His IPO price came in a little bit underneath that. Luka Doncic, $14.11. We're going to be going through with our phones too, so don't think that I'm being rude. I'm simply looking down at my phone for reference. Going to be an exciting finisher here as we're going to it. But on the top end for these studs, if we're getting $25 per share, it's hard not to feel like the Giannis investment isn't a very, very wise one today, right, Greg?
Yeah, and by the way, I was pulling up the Jock Market app, so I didn't really hear you give the explanation. Did you notice that the slate has started? So we're not in the IPO period. Okay,
so we just got done with the IPO period, and so we're into the paid trade phase. So we're able to click on NBA. You're able to look at the NBA daily market. They've now grouped it really, really nicely on the app. Super easy to use. I'm simply on the page immediately. So we're looking at Giannis at $17.05. Luka Doncic, $14.09. LeBron James coming in third. That's pretty surprising to me, considering he's the one guy who's questionable from the Lakers side. You want to be ready to react to that news. I would want to get to a lot of Russell Westbrook and Anthony Davis on Jock Market as soon as that news drops, so long as they stay at $12.94 and $12.88 for an ask. What do you think about that strategy?
So I actually like, just you mentioned before, I just bought shares of Giannis. I thought that that asking price of him was much too low at $17.80. Like you said, over on Awesemo.com, where we do have free Jock Market IPO prices, which without this, I wouldn't know what to bid on players, but it helps just be able to match it up. But like you said, we have a fair IPO price for Giannis Antetokounmpo at $21.30. The ask right there was $17.80. So I actually went and bought up 3 shares of Giannis.
That's pretty sharp. Yeah, $25 is going to be the payout for the top tier. You're going to be getting paid out on all of those shares. And let's say Giannis is absolutely smashing, but then it's a blowout and you're able to maybe sell high on him at 52, 53 fantasy points. You're able to take all that risk of somebody bypassing him in the late games. You can lock in your profit right away there. It's just so easy. It's as easy as that. So I'm going to just say, I think that that's a really sharp call by you. I'm going to try to get myself 1 share, $17.90. I think that there's a lot of room still for that. I'm happy to be clicking on that. I did not get that yet, but I will. Going to the rest of these plays down here on the bottom end, Christian Wood going a little bit undervalued. I think kind of surprising to see Devin Booker get taken for 938 as opposed to Christian Wood there at 886. You have missed shots. The count is minus 0.5 against you on Jock Market. That's the one little difference in the scoring that is very, very noticeable. So guys who fill up the box score in a multitude of ways and aren't necessarily just straight out volume shooters who could sink you. I think that's an advantageous way to play on Jock Market, but that makes me like Christian Wood a little bit more than Devin Booker even. But anybody who's the next player that you're seeing that looking at our IPO price and then what his fair price is, somebody that you're looking at getting shares of.
So the next one would be Rudy Gobert, who we talked about before also as being a really strong center option. All the rebounds that we had him projected for. Once again, I bet him for over 14 and a half rebounds today. Something that maybe that looks stupid later in the day because it's such a big number. And if he's going to miss, I think he could miss, fairly substantial. But we've Rudy Gobert, fair IPO price projected $13.80. And keep in mind also, if you guys aren't familiar with how the fantasy scoring works over at Jock Market, there are negative fantasy points for missed shots. Rudy Gobert does not miss very many shots, which plays very favorable for him over on the Jock Market scoring. And the asking price for him right now is $12.07 a share, and that's well short of the IPO projection we have for him. So I think that Rudy Gobert is a good player to try to buy.
I think that's a pretty good call too. I like that a lot. Again, DeAndre Ayton right now, $8.45 ask price. I would try to snag up as much of him as humanly possible. If we are on this show and he gets ruled in, I'm going to buy all of that up. I drink your milkshake. I drink it up. I love that as well. Everybody hit that like button too. If you're hanging out, we've got 1.7K people hanging out here for the Jock Market. We need that like button smashed. I get crap all the time because apparently I'm terrible at getting likes. Maybe it's because people don't like me, but I don't think that's the case. I don't think that that's true. Greg, don't shake your head.
I'm the one disliking the video. So it's this thing, right? Because I'm on a show. It's you and I together. And it's like, boy, I like myself, but I'm not sure about this Eric Lindquist character and how he pronounces, how he says foul when he's talking about somebody touching somebody else. So it is tough, but it does really do a lot for us and helps the YouTube channel when you like the video and subscribe. So even if you don't like Eric, if you like me, you should be liking the video. If you like Jordan Klein, you should be liking the video. If you like Sean V, like the video also. There's all different reasons to like the videos we do here. What?
All right, so I'm looking at getting some shares of Kevin Porter Jr. I think that he looks like an enticing buy. $16.86. I'm also looking, I don't want to play Jordan Nwora. I think he's a little bit too expensive. Please stop talking, Greg. I'm going to keep going here. Devontae Graham, $5.74. There we go. This is what I'm talking about. This is the kind of play here. $6.51 looked like what his IPO price is going to be there. His ask $6.59. I think some Devontae Graham in your life. No Brandon Ingram. Somebody has to shoot the ball. He could also be a guy who could sink you in the event that it's not going down there. Devontae Graham feels like a great play at $5.74 on Jock Market. I love that play. I'm going to get some shares. How does that sound?
Well, the issue is the asking price is $6.59. So what do we have?
Go to him.
$5.50 is our fair IPO price. It's a tough one to get to just because the ask is so high on him. I really do think that the best value is on Giannis, even though he's the most expensive player, because we have him as being the most likely to be the top scoring player by such a wide margin. I don't even mind that he has the $17.90 ask price right now.
Well, here we go. I'm going to pull up the game as that's going on. Once again, NBA games have been, is it just me or have they been starting a lot closer to the start time than ever before this season?
They definitely have been. I'm going to also, let's see if I could work this. I've got my iPad here.
I've got my iPad. I'm going to pull up the game here. I want to be able to talk with Chad and do this all. This will make Jordan a little bit anxious. Just see if my internet holds up. Let's go. Keep it going. I'm ready. No, he doesn't like that idea. I'm going to maybe put it on the TV. I'll put on the game.
No, that'll be copyright issues.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, don't do that.
That's a definite no. We will go blank screen with that one. I'm excited about it, but I want to be reacting to the game as it's going on. That's the most fun part of Jock Market.
By the way, the game is not particularly close to starting.
Oh, it's not? No,
they're doing player introductions right now.
What in the world? I just got done singing the NBA's praises about being able to get this done. But, no harm, no foul. I see what you did there, everybody. You guys are hilarious. This is just not remotely funny anymore. Kelly Olynyk down there, $5.64. I'm looking at a number of these plays. There are so many mid-level options. I want to kind of wait for this game to start. I will say right now, if you see Cade Cunningham at $5.68, that is his current ask price. If we watch after his first rotation, he plays 8-9 minutes. You want to be invested in some Cade Cunningham, so long as you think that, because I think automatically, if he plays 8 or 9 minutes in this first rotation, he's bound to play 27 plus in this game. And I think that I would want to be invested. If he only plays like 5 or 6, I'm going to be kind of a sit and wait approach for Cade Cunningham, but he could end up being the most undervalued player on this board in the event that he ends up being a fantasy point per minute producer, which I think we both kind of expect on a Detroit team that's not very good. Go ahead, Greg. Go ahead.
Yeah, so here's where I disagree because of the missed shots over on Jock Market. So we have as a fair IPO price projection at Cade Cunningham only $2.80. And I think that's the one thing we really have to be concerned about with Cunningham is how many negative points he's going to rack up from missed shots. And I kind of think he's just priced as early people are asking or putting asking price on him as if he is already going to be a guy who plays 26 to 28 minutes. So if there was some kind of discount, then I would say yes. But at least our projections are going to discount that a little bit. We only have him with a $2.80 fair IPO price. And even if we were to give him a fantasy point per minute, which I think is unlikely on Jock Market because of the scoring.
Right.
Let's say we have Cade Cunningham projected for 26 Jock Market points. That would be a fair IPO price of right around $5. So even then, I think it's a little bit steep.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, for me too, I think some of it needs to update a little bit. Nickeil Alexander-Walker at $4.50 for a fair IPO price. That seems a little bit low. That would be kind of looking at that number on our projections here. Let me update that and see if it's changed since I had uploaded this earlier, because him and Devonta Graham feel like markedly better plays with no Brandon Ingram out there. Maybe they still aren't affected with Brandon Ingram. Maybe he's still ruled in underneath the projections. I just find it very surprising that they're as low as what they are there. But I guess the missed shots have to be factored in big time. So I suppose that you're probably correct there. Devonta Graham, $5.70, a little bit more than Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I would prefer the Alexander-Walker play if you're trying to find one of the two over on Jock Market today. I'm looking down on the cheap end. I mean, I want to take shots on a guy like Thanasis, but I think he's a little bit expensive. We'll have to kind of see how he gets out of the gate in the early going. That game just tipped off. So that'll be exciting.
Lane violation for Giannis. Does he get a turnover for that? This would be a bad start for Giannis. Cancel the slate.
No, we're just going down in earlier round. No, Thanasis, 2-point bucket.
Oh, you're
party on, Garth. Party on.
You're ahead of me. They just tipped off on League Pass on my iPad.
How am I ahead of you? I live in California. This game is going in Detroit.
I think it's just because you're watching on your iPad too, right?
I am.
Yeah, I don't know. I just saw Pat Connaughton stole the ball from Cade Cunningham and then threw it up to Thanasis for the dunk.
W. Absolute W. Don't cancel the slate. Keep the slate going. Yeah, everything's going great.
Pay it out now.
Pay it out now. But part of the fun of this is that Greg and I are watching this game live. We are literally here live, being able to make analysis. Grayson Allen with a block. So now we have a Grayson Allen block that we can factor in. Stuff like this. If somebody goes on a quick hot streak, not everybody is updating this by the second for the projection. So if somebody goes for a quick 10, 12 points here, you could be looking at some fantastic value. Or in the event that you have somebody like Isaiah Stewart, who now has a missed shot and a personal foul and a kickball violation. And that doesn't go against him or anything, but we're looking at a number of things here for Isaiah Stewart, where it's not necessarily off to the best start. I don't know. He wasn't necessarily on the board for me on DFS sites. He's not really on the board for me for Jock Market, but if you had shares, you could be like, nope, I don't want to deal with this anymore, and probably get out pretty well, so long as you got a good number for him in the pregame IPO. So another fun, fascinating part of playing on Jock Market, your live analysis, Giannis turnover. Damn it.
He's done. We did get a starting lineup for the Heat, by the way. Kyle Lowry, Duncan Robinson, Jimmy Butler, PJ Tucker, and Bam Adebayo. And oh boy, that was a terrible pass by Giannis. Just saw that out of the corner of my eye. Just whipped it into the second row of the stands.
I'm literally like 1 second ahead of you, so that's cool. I like being in the future here. Let me find this. Actually, no, hang on. I just
Let's look at you know what I'm interested to see is what is going on Jock Market with the DeAndre Ayton, JaVale McGee situation.
Love that. I mean, DeAndre Ayton's way too cheap. $8.10 for him here. Let me see on the board right now.
Yeah, no, that's too expensive.
Yeah, $4.31 was his IPO price. Yeah, $8.10. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to get him right now and without having that
with
news.
The risk.
Yeah, not with the risk. You wouldn't want him at all. But I'm saying that in the event that he gets ruled in, that is an advantageous number. I would like him more than Booker, Wood, Mitchell, everybody else that's like a volume shooter.
So the first thing I would do is, so JaVale McGee has an asking price of $3.39. If Ayton is ruled out, I would try to get as many shares of JaVale McGee as I possibly could that are listed, because that is a really cheap asking price for him should he end up starting.
Yep, I definitely agree. $2.54 for a guy who's going to play 22 to 24 minutes, more than likely, with upside for more. We haven't seen upside for more, but it's definitely still there for him. So I love that. I think that that's a really good call as well. Those are the kind of things we're able to react to news as well live. So we've talked about reacting to the game live. Now you can take news into account. If you have Twitter notifications sent to your phone or Discord notifications from one news god in the chat all the time, giving you all of the great information here at Awesemo. He's in the premium Discord, putting it into that NBA breaking news channel. Have those updates set up, and you can be reacting live to everything as it's happening. I would swoop in and do the exact same thing. You would want all the shares in the world of JaVale McGee. That's one of the best investments you can make to build your bankroll right now. You know, if you get 15 shares of him at that, and he ends up getting $10 per share at the end of the night, puts up a 30 spot or a 35 fantasy point spot, which I think is very likely in that scenario. That is a huge ROI on the day, like nearly a 4 or 5x ROI. You can definitely make some good money over at Jock Market. Don't think that you can't. You can definitely make a really, really nice profit.
By the way, just side note, Giannis' shot looks way better this year. He had a 3 right before you started talking. Much smoother looking jump shot this year. So back on the Giannis train. We don't need
in the
to panic
preseason. Yeah, no, keep the slate going. Keep the slate going.
Keep it going.
Preseason, it was shocking how good his stroke looked. I haven't seen as many Bucks games. What? Jordan Klein, you can't do it every single time. You can't just say pause. I know you just typed pause before it gets pause. See? Yeah, I beat you to it. It's not a joke if I can beat you to the punchline. Yeah, dumb. God. Jeez. Man, good thing.
Jordan Klein.
He thinks
he's all powerful because he could pull the plug on us at any second, but he's actually right.
It's not going to go well for him or Jock Market, because Jock Market is they're sponsoring this 30-minute show, and I absolutely love playing over there. And apparently Jordan Klein is willing to put at risk all the good things that have happened here in the first 16 minutes of this program to self-serve his own needs. It's fine. Yeah, they pause again. How about that? Say pause to that one too. Why don't you? All right, 3 for 3. Giannis from the field, got a foul from Cade Cunningham, bucket. He is rolling. Do not cancel this slate. It is Giannis season. Just putting up points left and right. Thanasis, another defensive rebound. He's got 2 points and a rebound there. Good start here for the Bucks. 13-6. Want that to get a little bit closer. Hopefully Cade Cunningham could start, playing some basketball, because I don't know. That's what you're kind of hoping out of your number one pick. I love how with Jordan Nwora, Eric devolves into an old man shaking his fist at a turned off TV. Yes, that is what I do. I'm basically the Simpsons memes, all of them all together, especially the Homer meme. That's definitely going to be me forever. So thank you so much to the greatest troll of all time from Greg Ehrenberg. Good people. I do like my coworkers, contrary to popular opinion. All right, back to Jock Market, looking at some of these prices. We've talked about the late news. We've talked about the Lakers situation. We've talked about JaVale McGee as somebody to kind of invest in. Is there somebody else that we can possibly be looking? I need to buy a share right now of somebody that you think is undervalued, that has no real news surrounding them. Is there anything you're noticing that can be like a safe, secure play for me to get on Jock Market today?
All right. So I'm refreshing the current asking prices and seeing, what's looking appealing to us here. And you said towards the bottom. Let's see if we could find anybody. Let's see, I like Dwight Powell today, but Dwight Powell, he is an asking price of $5.02. That's a little rich for my blood. $5.02 for him is more than I want to ask. But Jordan Nwora is the asking price of $4.99. That is outrageous. I know you like him, but
not at that number. For what it's worth, I don't like Jordan Nwora. I'm hate playing him today. I'm absolutely hate playing Jordan Nwora. I am chasing like a mother. I can't help it. I just can't help it. Just doing it.
Boy, I feel like a lot of these guys. How about our friend Herbert? Nope. Herbert Jones, his asking price is $4.36. No way I'm paying that much per share for Herbert Jones. Yeah. I'm scrolling. I'm doing my due diligence. I'm looking for value, but it looks like the folks are on top of this. Bobby Portis, $4.46.
Just checked into the game.
That's probably about fair though. The one that really, like I said, that stands out for it's that JaVale McGee play at $3.39 if Ayton gets rolled out. I want to be all on top of that. But
what is EMAC doing in the chat right now? Hi, EMAC. What's going on? Did you just fall asleep on your keyboard? What's going on? But then you would have to hit enter each time. So I guess that wouldn't be like a falling asleep on the keyboard situation.
Yeah, I don't know. Is EMAC gone back to old habits?
I don't know. Yeah, Team Eric. Yes, Team Eric. I'll take that. But that is that's a lot of that. There's a dolphin and a flamingo, and I'm just confused. Yeah. I didn't know if there was any point there. Somebody just asked, what about Conley? Ooh, I love getting inquiries on players. $5.87, 672. Mike Conley against Sacramento. You got to think this is a good spot. Davion Mitchell. Do you know Davion Mitchell's nickname?
Enlighten me.
It is Off Night. It is the greatest nickname I've ever heard because when you face him, you have an off night. So Davion Off Night Mitchell. I think that's pretty epic. Ryan told me that once upon a time. It will always. That's one of the greatest nicknames I've ever heard. But I don't really care. I don't think he's a good enough defender to contain Mike Conley, and I don't look at individual defense.
It is Basketball Reference official. If you go on Basketball Reference, it is listed as Off Night. But the actual best nickname is that Gary Payton III is the mitten.
That is true. Do you remember the slate last year? I think I won the Minimax that night too, but I was getting hardcore trolled because I had so much interest in Gary Payton III, who was not on the active roster for the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, that was I'm pretty sure we did that show together.
I think we did.
Here's what happened. You did your Slate Starter podcast.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. with Rinback that everybody should be subscribing, downloading over at our podcast channel. And you had really liked Gary Payton III, and we did the show. I want to say it's like 6:45 Eastern time, 45 minutes. You're banging the drum. Gary Payton III, greatest play in the history of DFS. Everybody should get 110% of this guy. You're going crazy. And then like 10 minutes before the slate starts, he's inactive, not on the active roster.
Yeah. Steve Buzzard sent me the tweet where they said that Gary Payton wasn't going to be in uniform that evening and maybe don't play him 65% or whatever it was that I was going to fire him up. But yeah, the mitten, that is without a doubt the best nickname in the history of the NBA. So I agree with you there. Sharp take by you. Surprise. Nobody's surprised. All right. Going to the other
one. Mike Scott is the regional manager. That's also a really solid one.
I do like that too. Is Mike Scott still in the NBA?
Is he still in the NBA?
He was with Philly, obviously, last stint, but
he is he's not on a roster right now.
That's sad.
No,
he could get hot from three randomly. It was so much easier. Better than the Paul Reed play that we tried to make a thing yesterday. Confirmed, not a thing. All right. Mike Conley, yeah, he's going to be a little bit too expensive. I think it's 672. You have Devontae Graham sitting right next to him. I think just getting that confirmed Brendan Ingram out, we're going to want to fire up, I think, more Devontae Graham. I think that would make a little bit more sense. Going through some of our projections, we have the pregame. These are all free, by the way. The Jock Market, NBA DFS, IPO pricing / projections. Check them out. We're going to be kind of referring to those constantly when we're doing these shows for Jock Market. I like some of those other mid-tier plays a little bit more. Devontae Graham, yeah, $5.70 is the number we have in for him right now. His ask price is a little bit more than that. I think you could be willing to snag some shares early. He knocks down a couple early threes, gets it going. I think he's somebody to possibly be buying live as that game's going on because I don't see that number changing a whole lot between now and lock. All right, Jordan Nwora has checked into the game. I repeat, it is Jordan Nwora season, right?
Let's see. Right? It's just I didn't look at who checked in. I see George Hill. I see Punch Bob Portis. There's Jordan Nwora out on the perimeter. Yeah, he's in there.
Doing nothing. We've got Cade Cunningham, 2-1-1 to start off the game here. Bobby Portis, he's out there firing. He's 0 for 2 now from the field. Let's see.
By the way, you know what's funny about just judging players and going crazy like a minute into the game? So Cade Cunningham, who by the way does not have a minutes restriction, is scoring about a fantasy point per minute now because he got a bucket and a rebound.
Another bucket and a block. Bobby Portis block. This is going to be fun.
No, it was a steal for Bobby Portis.
I'm ahead of you. He just got a block. He just
after the steal.
Killing, yeah.
Oh man, things are looking good. By the way, our friend over under in the chat, there is at least according to Dwayne Casey, who could be a dirty, filthy liar. There is no minutes restriction for Cade Cunningham tonight.
Hey, that's 7 minutes. I said Cade Cunningham. I'm going to go get some shares right now of Cade Cunningham. He's $4.80. He's 7 minutes into this rotation. Has not left the floor yet. I think this bodes really, really well for him. I'm going to just slide in this to $4.80. I'm going to get as many shares as I possibly can because, again, I'm looking at him being somebody that I want to be early to the party on. I'm going to see if I can buy 10 shares of him at this number. Nope, I got 4 shares at $4.80.
Of who?
Of Cade Cunningham.
By the way, you know who's actually crushing is all of the cheap plays on the Bucks right now. Well, not all of them, but Grant Hill and Grayson Allen are both off to pretty good starts.
Yeah, really good. Grayson Allen, a willing shooter, willing participant in the basketball game. 2 for 6 from the floor, 2 for 5 from 3, 2 blocks. Hello, how you doing? Welcome to FanDuel Scoring. Nice to meet you. Very good start here for him. Looking around some of these other cheapies. Yeah, Bobby Portis is just getting going. We'll kind of see what that turns into here. But man, Cade Cunningham still on the floor, 8 minutes in. This is really, he's going to play 30 minutes. If he plays 30 minutes, that would just be outrageous at this point. You think over under 28 at this point?
It's hard to say. He actually played a really similar substitution pattern last game. So I don't know for sure, but he played the first 8.5 minutes of his first game also.
Okay. Well, let's see. I mean, I just think this bodes well. If there's would it surprise you if Dwayne Casey was lying? No, it would not surprise me, but I think that this is still a really good omen here for him just to get it going. He's not doing anything on the FanDuel slate, 3.7 FanDuel points here I'm looking at right now. On DK, obviously he's still going to be more than serviceable at that number. He's sub 4K. I wasn't too worried about however much I got to him. I know I didn't lock button what would he end up being? 55% for me. I think that's about right.
And by the way, appreciate Mongo in the chat is saying that he likes the watch along stream. We should keep it going. Maybe we could at some point, but I am very hungry and I have we've still got some time left. We got about 3.5 minutes.
Jordan Nwora put back dunk. Jordan
Nwora.
Jordan Nwora. It doesn't matter what your name is. Let's go. A little bit of the rock. Let's go. God, Jordan Nwora, please be the guy. And yeah, you don't need me to do that when you're hungry. I apologize. That was probably the most annoying moment in the history of NBA Live Before Lock. That says something. Let's round out Jock Market with this. We got 3 minutes to go here. What are the 2 pieces of news, 2 pieces of advice as far as being able to watch games live and being able to pluck players? What are the main things that you're kind of looking for in terms of rotations, in terms of productivity? When might you be looking to overspend for a player compared to what the projections are saying?
Well, I mean, that would have to be in game if somebody gets off to a really good start, or if it's a situation like think of it from a usage standpoint, where let's say you're watching the Suns game and Chris Paul gets into early foul trouble. Now I have interest in Devin Booker just because all of a sudden it's, hey, if Chris Paul is going to play less minutes, the ball's in Devin Booker's hands more. We could expect more usage, more playing time. So foul situations to me would really be the number one where I think that a player benefits most obviously.
Okay. I just think that that's such an important part of being able to take advantage of all the features of Jock Market. Yeah. Thinking about the usage, thinking about rotations. A guy like Bobby Portis isn't going to come in until halfway through the game or halfway through the first quarter at least. And so if you see some prices dip, if somebody doesn't necessarily, if they see that they have 0 points and they're watching the game live and they don't take that into account, be ready to pounce, because once he gets into that game, you might be able to get him at an even better value. I know that's something that you've talked about a lot on Jock Market before too, but we've got 2 minutes here. Again, thank you so much to Jock Market. Head over as we're finishing up this show, download the Jock Market app, the app. Use promo code Awesemo. Get a 100% match for up to $50. That's $50 that immediately gets added to your account for use at Jock Market. That's basically a nice little free roll to be able to try out their product, see if you like it. It is really fun, super simple to use, very clean interface. And it's such a simple concept too. You're buying and selling shares of players. We get shares of players. We talk about their ownership all the time on these other sites. But on Jock Market, that's literally all you're doing is identifying that one player compared to where the market is valuing them. And you can identify the places where you think that they're maybe undervalued, and it won't always be just straight off of what the DFS projections are for them. A lot of times people will overvalue players on Jock Market because they're popping in DFS. So just take advantage of all the tools we have here at Awesemo, the free Jock Market projections, utilize that payout, the Awesemo promotion that we have going with them. And then also for NFL Sundays, up to $100 of a free roll for the NFL market. It doesn't get a whole lot better than that. So use them on Sunday as well. But Greg Ehrenberg, we've reached the end of our boarding walk. Any final words for the people?
No, just, for sure, just be on the lookout for that injury news. We're still waiting on the Houston Rockets guys. We're still waiting on DeAndre Ayton. So DeAndre Ayton is listed as questionable to play. Jayshawn Tate is listed as questionable to play. Daniel Tice is listed as questionable to play. Less important, but Dwight Howard also listed as questionable to play. If you guys are not keeping up on all of the news in NBA DFS, it's a foul.
Oh, it's a foul. I was waiting for it. Norman Powell, it's a foul. God, you're just a mean person. I'm going to talk to you after we get off this air. All right, we're out of here, guys. It's 4:30. Thank you so much again to Jock Market. Thank you so much to Jordan Klein behind the virtual glass, because contrary to personal opinion, he is an okay person. It's fine. Whatever. He's Greg Ehrenberg. I'm Eric Lindquist. We'll catch you later.
Yeah, I don't believe any of the rumors. I don't think Jordan actually.
I'm leaving. I'm done.
Jordan did.